what I really would like to deeper understand is like your story of becoming a monk.
Yeah.
Like, what exactly drove you to becoming a monk?
So I'm now 36, and as far as I can remember, I think from around the age of 10, I remember I was asking myself, what's the meaning of life? And I know many people have this question,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people, they let this question, be a bit more in the background, but for me it was very present, especially once I finished my studies. So first, let's say, from 10 to 20, this question was not so prevalent, like on the foreground. But when I studied and when I finished my studies, I started to think more and more about this question.
When civil engineer.
Yeah, when I was a civil engineer, or when I was studying civil engineering. So I remember even a friend of mine when I was in high school, around the age of 15, he said like, you should stop asking yourself this question because it will make you very depressed. And the funny thing was, or not, maybe also not funny, but I mean, it led me to where I am now. It made me actually very depressed for many, many years.
To this question? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? I understand. And not because of the question, but this question was so important for me to get an answer to, because why am I doing anything? You know, like I said, I think also in the last podcast that I'm going out in the street and distribute books to people. And a question I often ask people like, do you think about life? Or are you just living like from one to the other moment? So, and since I'm like at least 10 years, maybe much earlier even, I was thinking, what's the meaning of life? Like this was the main question that was in the background of my mind. And sometimes it was a bit less on the foreground than other times, but it was always there. And it indeed made me depressed. Why? Because I couldn't find an answer to this question, like a proper answer. And I'm a person that needs a very clear answer before I say, okay, this is the answer I'm looking for. So I kept searching, and so I studied civil engineering. I was a good student. I finished everything within the normal 4 years. But so I was like 21, 22. Then I decided I'm gonna quit everything. Like I finished my studies. I'm one of the special students that has, instead of a big loan, I had a big a good bank balance because I studied as a, intern. I did the intern and they get paid.
Especially like dual study.
Yeah, dual study. So I had like 20,000 euros on my bank account.
Saved after studies.
Saved up because I lived with my parents and I never was a big spending. If I had money, for me, I didn't have to spend it. Like a lot of people, when they have money, they have to spend it. Like a lot of people are always around zero, but for me, it's never an issue. So I had a lot of money and I thought, okay, I don't know why, but somehow I decided I'd go to Australia and New Zealand. So I spent all my money there for 8-9 months. Like especially in Germany, there's a lot of Germans going there also. Yeah. Like they get a few million Germans, students, or like around 19 years old, like before they study, they go there. And most of them, they do woofing, they do some work, but I was just enjoying life, getting wasted every single day almost, and skydiving, bungee jumping, surfing, snorkeling, all the things that you can do there. I did it and it was fun. I had a very good time. But at some point I started to notice, this is, there's an end to all this enjoyment. Maybe I mentioned it before, like all material enjoyments have a beginning and an end point. And even before that, like when I was younger, my parents always told me like that it was very hard for me to keep with one thing, at some point I was just bored with something, like I was quickly bored with all kind of things. And that's probably because, this question was in my head, like what's the meaning of all this? And I mean, as a child I wasn't thinking, why am I playing here with Lego? Like I still like Lego, but I got bored and then I needed something else, like, it was quickly boring and more quicker than with other people. I can have an explanation for it, why maybe, but I think it's not so important yet to mention this. But the thing was, this question was there, and I was getting quicker and quicker bored of things. So as I said, like I was 8-9 months in Australia and New Zealand, doing all the fun stuff that you can do there. It was a good time. But at some point I got fed up with all the getting wasted and all the sleeping with ladies and all this stuff. And it gradually went down and I started to try to find more the nuances of trying to enjoy life more on a, how do you say that, in a little bit less extreme enjoying way, let's say, but still like, you know, still enjoying. And even when
like
I came...
more stable, not like...
Yeah, not like trying to get the most out of it, like going completely wild, drunk and whatever, and do all kind of crazy stuff. But I was like still enjoying life over the time. But I started to experience that it was so meaningless for me. It was very meaningless. And then at some point when all my money ran out, and I went back to the Netherlands, and I actually took up the job of civil engineering for another 10 months. And already very quickly I got like really unhappy with this job. It was a good pay, I had a car of the company, and you know, everything was good, like on a financial and a materialistic level. But I was so unfulfilled. I was so unfulfilled that I didn't even try to make it to 12 months, because then you would get, you could quit and get still money from the government. I was so fed up, I said, I'm just gonna quit it. And then I decided I'm gonna work in a factory, because it's very simple work, so I can really think about life. So my body is busy, and then my mind, I can use it for thinking about life. So I did this for a couple of months.
Just like...
Yeah, simple work. And I lived again at my parents', so I saved again a lot of money. And then after another couple of months, I decided again to travel, and this time I decided to travel all the way from my hometown all the way to Australia. Because actually my idea was to use all the money they have to get to Australia, like overland and overseas. I didn't want to use any airplanes. In the end I did use one airplane, but I hitchhiked a lot and took trains and you know, only vehicles that are on the ground or on the water. And so, but I ended up in Indonesia, but then I got like a hernia, and then I actually started to hernia, like lower back problems.
Okay.
It was really painful, and my idea was actually to go to Australia and work in the mine. So you know, I'm not in a position to do that, because it's good in Australia. You can make good money with these kind of things. So then I decided to. I was thinking like what to do, and then in the end I decided to go back home, because for 1 month I was staying in Java. It's one island in Indonesia. I was staying there till that far I got. I had like 15 months or 14 months from the Netherlands all the way to Indonesia. I went through Germany, Poland, Baltics, Russia, Mongolia, China, Southeast Asia, almost all countries, and then Indonesia. Till that far I got. It was an amazing experience. I met a lot of interesting people, a lot of adventure. I hitchhiked through the desert of Mongolia. I got lost in the desert there. I met many amazing people I met. I will not go too deep in that, because there's many stories. But that time I was around 25 years old, and at that time I started to get in contact with spiritual teachings. Like in Mongolia I got in contact with shamanism. In China I got in contact with Buddhists.
What kind of shamanism? Or like...
I don't know what. I mean, it's like the northern part of Mongolia.
You just met some shamans, or?
Yeah, like it's part of the Mongol culture. Shamanism is quite a known thing. So I mean, I didn't go deep into it, but I got in touch with that. And I got to know people that could tell stuff about me. Like there was, for example, in Mongolia, I met my first girlfriend actually. She's from there, and somehow we ended up together, staying at the place of one very interesting lady, and she could tell stuff about my girlfriend and about me. Like she was like psychic, you know. And it was the first time I got in contact with such things, you know, like maybe being in touch with spiritual things. But this was my first kind of spiritual experience, that like people could tell stuff about me that never met me in my life. And it's like, yeah, okay, how does it work? You know, I mean, I couldn't understand, but there was something special about this lady. And my girlfriend at that time, she also felt that. But this was like the first inkling I got about spirituality.
Okay.
And just a random person I met, but like there was something about her. And then later on I came in touch with Buddhists in China. I was living for 2 weeks with Kung Fu monks somewhere in South China, like practicing Kung Fu with them. And then later on I met another shaman in Malaysia who told me, who could connect the dark spirits, and told stuff about me that I think, how do you know this? And then later on I got in contact with Vipassana, maybe you know this, Vipassana. Yes. So I did my first 10-day silence retreat.
I'm going to do one in like 2 months. Like
where?
I'm going to do it in Belgium. Yes.
Probably
Yes.
the same one as I did.
Yeah.
I did it there also once. Yeah.
Yes.
I will come to that. I will come to that also. So I did Vipassana for the 10-day science retreat, and it really
In Indonesia.
that was actually in Thailand.
Okay,
So
yes.
probably you know this, or probably do it with the same organization.
Yes,
They're all around the world
like
now.
This
Dhamma.
Yeah, exactly. Dhamma.
Yeah, they
like,
have like hundreds of centers
yes,
all over.
all
Yeah,
around the
from
world. Yes.
Goenka.
Yes, Goenka. Yes, exactly.
He's funny guy.
Yeah.
He is actually he one of our spiritual teachers. In my teaching, he actually got to know Goenka. They're acquainted.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I did this practice for 10 days.
For people listening, Vipassana is like a 10-day meditation.
Not per se 10-day.
No, but like,
it's. Shall I explain it?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, maybe you can explain better. Like,
so Vipassana is actually the real meditation that Gautama Buddha did. So nowadays you see a lot of Buddhists. They also do chanting. Like in my practice, I'm a Hare Krishna monk. For the ones who didn't see the other podcast. So we do mantra meditation. Mantra means mind, and tre means to deliver the mind. So to deliver the mind from the false bad thoughts and stuff like that. So if you go to India, for example, like I've actually been to Bodh Gaya, where Buddha reaches enlightenment. I've been to the same tree where Buddha was sitting under, and where he reached his enlightenment 2,500 years ago. And when you go to Bodh Gaya, like there was also Dalai Lama was there, and he was doing a big pandal program, like tens of thousands of people come and they listen to, spiritual speakers, in this case, and Dalai Lama. And nowadays, many of them are chanting also. But actually, and that's also what Goenka, as far as I understand, explains it, he says the actual real meditation is Vipassana. And the real part of Vipassana is actually that you focus on your breathing and you feel the breath below your nose. And then later on, you start to explore the sensations throughout your body. You can even go to such an extent that you can feel the sensations in your organs.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because your mind, because in those 10, like the normal standard thing is you do it for 10 days silence. You don't speak, you don't communicate anyway with anyone except...
Don't even look people in the eyes, right?
No, I mean, you try not to.
Yeah.
And then after a few days, think, who is this person? Or you want to say something to this person. But 10 days, you're completely silent. The only person you can speak to is one of the head teacher. And you can have a little Dhamma talk, let's say, like just one-on-one to ask questions. But in those 10 days, you're completely silent. You will notice that your thoughts will still be there, but you become really disidentified with the thoughts. So you really start to understand I'm not the thoughts. You can even come to the level of understanding I'm not the body. I had such experiences. I did 3 of them, or actually 2.5. The last one I quit halfway. But you can start to get really into an inner silence, and you start to, especially for me, I mean for everybody it's different of course, but for me it was really much, I was really, not engaged, but identified. I was not identifying myself anymore with my thoughts and my body. I could actually feel that I'm not this body. I could somehow, I really felt it like that. Not see it, but like I felt it. So meditation helps you to get to the states. Mm-hmm. So I was doing that also in Thailand then. And I felt really light. I really felt like, because mostly what feels heavy in life is our own thoughts. Like whatever issue there is in life, it's in the end only our own mind how it responds on these things. So Vipassana helps me a lot with this. I'm still actually practicing Vipassana till this day. I quit sometimes, but it's a practice that is very helpful still, even though I practice now in other tradition, because it helps to make the mind peaceful. But then you go on in the story, like I did this in Thailand, and then after a few months, I was in 2 months or something, I was in Indonesia. And then somehow I made a really stupid fall, and I got Indonesia.
You also met a shaman there.
No, that was in Malaysia.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in Malaysia, and then from Malaysia I went so I was first in Thailand, and then I think I went to Malaysia, and then I flew to Borneo. Okay, that's the only time I took an airplane, because I wanted to try to catch a boat, but I was not so adventurous to really go look for it. But in the end, I was in Borneo, and then I met this shaman. And it was just a small encounter, but it opened me up that hey, there is more than. I never was thinking about spirituality till that trip actually. And then after that I took a boat to Java to Indonesia, and there I got an accident that I had some issue with my lower back. I couldn't, it was hurting me all the time. And my money was already finished. I was already borrowing money from my parents. I said, in this state, I cannot go to Australia to, as I said, like I want to work in the mines to make money, and then I don't know what my plan was to do after, but that was my idea. I wanted to keep traveling. But somehow, by divine arrangement, I got this issue with my back, and then in the end, I decided to go back to the Netherlands. I was depressed for like 2-3 months. I was lying on bed. I was not doing anything. I didn't know what to do with my life. Like I tried to enjoy, but somehow I was feeling also during the trip actually, even though it was an amazing experience, I started to feel like lower and lower, like something was missing. Something was really missing in my life. And when I had this back problems, I felt like, I don't know, when you have certain like injuries, you can get also really depressed. But I was thinking like, what am I going to do with my life? I didn't know what career I wanted to do. I didn't know what, I had all this fun in my life. I traveled a lot. I've had amazing girlfriends, all kind of material enjoyments. I tried this to a certain degree, but it was not fulfilling. But somehow after 2.5-3 months, I came out of this depressive bubble, and I decided to start working again. I started working in sales. Doing cold calling to people. And I don't know if you know about this, but I had already at that time, I had some friends from before, and they were into the pickup artist community. Maybe you heard of this?
I heard of this, yes.
Yeah, probably if you're into this kind of stuff. So this is, for the people that know, pickup artists is like guys who learn how to seduce women anywhere and everywhere. And I was already knew about this since I'm 20, so already for 5 years I knew a bit about this. But then for the next 4 or 5 years I got really much into it. Like we had a whole group in the north of Netherlands where we did trips to different things, and we tried to enjoy life and try to sleep with as many beautiful women as possible and do the most crazy stuff to get these women. And yeah, it was a, now I look back on it, it was very, actually a low form of trying to see life to me. But I learned a lot from it. So I'm really happy I did this because it gave me a lot of confidence. I was actually, since I was very young, I was actually very shy, so, from whatever reason. And so it gave me self-confidence. It made me take more care of my health. It made me read a lot of books about psychology, about self, I was a lot into self-development. Not for the most purest reason, but at least I got, better. But at some point, around, I'm now 36, so around when I was 29, it was around this time actually, when I was 29, so like 7 years ago. Just in a sudden, I was getting around that time, I was getting into spiritual things a little bit.
It was still while you did like sales and pick up
artists
stuff.
Yeah, I had a stupid goal. I wanted to sleep with 100 women before I get my girlfriend, and I probably got around that goal. And actually another thing, like when going back a bit to 5 years when I just came home from Indonesia, when I had my back problem, I had a lot of depression. It's maybe a bit heavy thing to say here, but anyways I will say it because it's part of my story, I think, is that I say if within 5 years I don't find the real purpose in life, because I got in touch with monks, I said I'm going to become a monk. Because I saw these people were living very serene, but I still didn't believe that, I was not fully convinced that there's, or was still looking for happiness within the material realm, like in material achievements and stuff like that. But I said this like really sincerely from my heart, like if nothing works, if I cannot really not find any happiness, I'm in 5 years, I give it 5 year time, then I'm going to become a monk. And I just said it once, but later on I remember, like exactly 5 years ago, then I became a monk. But going back to a year before that, before I became a monk, so I was 29, yeah.
So at that point you're in sales?
Yeah, so I was doing sales, I was getting investment in Bitcoins, I was doing some online business. Actually financially I was doing really well. I was making a lot of money with different things. I had a good social life, I had a good physique, I was like really, really fit, I had like 5% body fat and had like 8-pack, I was doing calisthenics, I was doing 2-3 hour sports a day, so on a material level I was really doing really well.
2-3 hour what? 2-3 hour post-day?
Workouts. I was doing every day 2 to 3 hour workouts.
Damn. Yes.
I was part of like a self-help group, but also we had a calisthenics group. So you know what this is? So
I do calisthenics.
I do calisthenics. Yeah, it's a really good sport. So we were one of the first people in the Netherlands who did this. We were one of the first people that created actually parks in the Netherlands. So there's like that happened around this. That happened around when I was 10 years ago or something like that. It started to come up here in Europe, and we have in Netherlands we have really a lot of parks actually.
Yeah, I know.
Even more than in Germany, I think. Like
definitely,
in Germany,
definitely.
there's really many. So there was a lot of parks like around my house at some point because we created them. So I was physically I was really well and all was very good. But then around I was 29 when I had very good health. I was nice, a lot of women in my life, and I had a good physique. I was really healthy. I was eating very good, and everything on material level was quite good. But but at some point I felt like there's something missing. I felt it. And then I was a bit getting into spirituality. I was looking into different things. I was contemplating about doing ayahuasca, and I also did, at that time I did a few times LSD already, so it opened me up to, hey, there's something more. So I went more into the psychedelics and the new age kind of spiritual things, different kind of form of meditation. I was doing yoga. So I was also starting to experience more finer things in life, like mostly yoga helps you to, I'm also now doing almost daily yoga, you become more sensitive when you do yoga and stuff like that, or meditation. Sensitive to the subtle things, like you become more aware of people's emotions, because it makes you more peaceful in your own mind, or your mind is not disturbing you so much, so you actually can perceive more the finer things in life. Not just within you, within yourself and in your body. Like as I said before, I was doing this Vipassana. Your mind is so much, it's still there, but it's not attacking you so much, or you distance yourself from it. You start to even feel the sensation within your organs.
Yeah.
Like the really fine, it's like, normally we don't experience this. But when you do this kind of meditation, yoga, you become more peaceful, and you start to feel more the subtle things within you, but also within others. So you become more sensitive. So, and I think because I opened myself up through these different mediums, out of the blue, but kind of gradually, I started to have a really interesting spiritual experience, which I don't know why I had it, but it just happened to me. At some point, I started to realize I am, that was my belief at that time, I am God, like oneness. So, and for 3 weeks...
So not you are God, but...
I am God.
Like you specifically and everything else not?
No, everyone, like we're all one,
yes,
all
okay.
oneness.
Yes.
All oneness.
So you're part, you are God and everything is
Yeah,
God.
we're all one,
yes,
like
yes,
all
yes.
oneness. I had this kind of experience. And I couldn't understand what it meant, but I felt like it was the first time in my life when my mind was really working for me. So even in the philosophy I'm doing now as a Hare Krishna monk, we say, the mind can be the worst enemy, but it can also be your best friend. It just, you need to train it. So, but for most people, including myself, most of the time, the mind is living us instead of we're using the mind to live. So we're being lived by the mind and the senses. But at that time, somehow out of the blue, there was not a specific thing I did that made this happen. For around 3 weeks, I was at the level that my mind was not disturbing me at all for the whole 3 weeks. No, there was no negative thought at all in my mind. Like my mind was really pure and a really pure consciousness.
At that point, you were still doing sales?
There's still all the same things, but just it happened to me. We call it mercy in our philosophy.
Okay.
So some mercy came to me. So for example, like...
So no specific meditation that triggered this?
No, it just happened, just by mercy. Some people have that.
Yeah.
But it opened me up to certain things, but it also created a big spiritual ego in me, believing that I am God and I've realized everything, and so on and so on. So for example, a few experiences that I had, like I could see, I was so clear, my vision, like the way you perceive life now, it always changes over your lifetime. So, but at that time I had a certain perception that we were really being moved by some energy. I could really see everything being moved. It was like one energy. It's like one thing that moving everything. And with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, we can explain what it actually is. But I could see that. I could see that there was something there that is moving us. I was sitting with a friend of mine. I was sitting with her at a coffee bar. It was like around this time, so it was nice weather. And like Groningen, where I lived, there's a lot of bicycles, and I could just see how everything was being moved. Like we thinking we're the doer, but actually, according to my philosophy now and that experience I had at that time, I could really see that we're not the doer. No, something is moving us. It's just that we have to accept that. It's just the mind, the false ego, that keeps us from experiencing this reality, this higher reality. So, like trying to let go of the control. You know, maybe you've seen the movie, how's it called? Fight Club.
Yes.
You know the scene? I was thinking a lot about it because I saw
really
spiritual
like
message.
It's my favorite movie.
Yeah, okay, now here you go. So you know that moment when, I forgot his name, but
Tyler Durden?
Tyler Durden, yeah, he says, let go of the steer. You know, they're driving really fast in the car.
Yes.
I don't know where they're going anymore, but he said, let go.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you know, we have to let go of the steer and being steered. And we need to connect within. Like that's what yoga actually is meant for. It means connection within the higher soul. I believe that in God. So I believe God is steering everything. But at that time I believe we're all God. So we're all God, but I didn't believe in a personality. But it was both, but it was still spiritual. And I could actually experience that, and I could see people who were interacting with me and they're giving me messages. I could see that messages were coming through different people to me, but also through posters. They were just speaking to me. Like there was one spiritual, like a poster about something spiritual, and it was talking to me like, this is what you have to do. So I did a course that I just saw on a poster. Normally I would never do such a thing. But it was I was just, you know, leaning towards that spiritual things. So I started, in the end I did that also, the spiritual thing. But like I saw things were talking to me. You know, like when people are into spirituality, they believe often that, and I believe that also, is that things happen for a reason. There's not a single thing that doesn't have a reason behind it. I believe everything happens for a reason. There's always an action and a reaction. So that's all. I call this, or in our philosophy we call this karma. It's all karmically. It's all connected. Same way, like in our philosophy, we say you're born in a certain family, in a certain place, in a certain time, because you have a certain karma from a previous life that brings you to a certain place, certain time, with a certain parents and family, because it's all karmically already written in your script, let's say, because of desires. So now I understand our freedom of movement within the reality is our desire. That's the only freedom we have. And then according to the filter of karma and the purity of the desire, it's being put into practice, put into reality. So let's say, for example, you want to become a millionaire. You work really hard for it, so you have to have the desire, and you work really hard for it, and you have the karma for it to become a millionaire, then you will become a millionaire. Yeah. But then you have another person who has this desire, but he doesn't have the good karma for it, so he can work his ass off, like he can work 100 hours a week, but he still doesn't become a millionaire because his karma is not there. And then you have the other person who has the karma for it, but he's lazy, or his desire is just not there, and he doesn't become a millionaire. Or it becomes so easily to him because it's already in his karma. So these things happen. So you know, we also have to have the karma to be born in certain places, in certain families, and with certain wealth and certain bodies, and so on and so on. So even sickness, there's not just something that's a concept that's made up now that can even be tracked down by Jyotish. Jyotish is Vedic astrology. I think I've talked about it last time.
Yes.
Yeah, Jyotish is, so there's, people know about astrology in the West, but Jyotish, that's actually very scientific. It is actually.
Do they do like
accurate.
Experiments and stuff? Like, do they do like scientific experiments?
No, it's not. I mean, it is a science, but
yes.
it's so they can check based on your birthday, birth time, and the location of the moon and the different nakshatras. I don't know so much about it. But it's very complicated. It's I heard like when you want to study it really detailed, it takes many years, like 10, 15 years. It takes longer than studying medicine, for example. It's much more complicated, and you have to keep studying it all the time. It's very, very, very difficult subject to really learn very deeply. But the thing is, with this, they can check down your previous lives, what you were, you know, not 100% exact, but like to certain degrees, depending on how learned this astrologer is, how good he is in the science. But I'm drifting a bit away.
Yes. No, you were telling about those 3 weeks where you were
yeah. So these 3 weeks, I got glimpses of that there's more than just, you know, the 9-to-5 job, sleeping, eating, mating, and defending, like the philosophy that I practice now. Like most people just eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. That's all they do. The same thing as other animals. The only thing is because we have a higher intelligence and we do it more sophisticated. So we have very beautiful buildings where we have heating, so we don't get cold and stuff. But we still do the same thing, but just more sophisticated. But our philosophy, like the Hare Krishna philosophy, we have to use this intellect for contemplation, about the meaning of life. So that's the reason why I came to this path in the end. And to understand the deeper questions of life: who am I, what am I doing here, and so on. So in this experience that I had for 3 weeks, 7 years ago, I could see, hey, there is something more. And I had a few crazy experiences. Also, like I remember when I was cycling through the rain. I was like cycling really, really fast. And normally I just enjoyed it, like driving through the rain. Normally I hate it, and also I felt really light. I felt like floating. I mean, it's hard to explain, but I experienced things that it's hard to explain if you haven't experienced that. But I experienced a different level of, and it all had to do with my mind and my consciousness. It was just on another level, just randomly. Probably not randomly, but then it felt really random. And I believed. At that time, because I was getting in spirituality, people that often go into spirituality, they get some spiritual awakening, and then they believe, I'm there, I'm already spiritual awakened. But that's a continuous process, I learned later. But that time I'm awakened, I know everything. So, and also the wisdom of the book that we studied, Hare Krishna, the Bhagavad Gita, a lot of this knowledge came to me, except from the part that all this knowledge is spoken by God and that there actually is a supreme controller who is God. So besides that, I got the idea of karma, reincarnation. Somehow that knowledge just came to me. And later on, a bit further on, when I got to become a Hare Krishna monk, I understood this is because of previous lives. Like when I went to Jyotish, to this Vedic astrologers, they actually said, yeah, in previous lives you also were already practicing this philosophy. So, that memory is still there. So for example, very simple, how can you explain thoughts that come up in your mind, or dreams that make no sense at all, not even from this life? It is because it comes from previous lives. Or in dreams, it's often also a combination of previous lives. So, for example, you've been in the Himalayas in this lifetime, and in the previous life, maybe you were Dagobah Duck, and you had like a mountain of gold, for example. So maybe in your dream you see a mountain of gold, a golden mountain, because all these images you see, even in dreams, they always are. I mean, dreams is very mixed up, but it's always based on things that you really experience, either in this life or previous lives. Why? Because our philosophy says you have a spirit soul, and then that's the one, and the spiritual body, and then you have also subtle body, the mind, the false ego, and intelligence, which you take with you from lifetime to lifetime. So all these memories from previous hundreds and thousands, millions of lives, it's all with you. You drag that with you, and then you have a physical body that's just for one lifetime. So I could see like these things.
You understood them in this.
Yeah, I could understand like, hey, there's more to life, but I also felt I'm enlightened. I was really blissful.
So you felt like you understand everything. Everything felt like right.
So it was also a big false ego that came up with it. Because I was at that time I was sleeping like 4 hours a day, 4 or 5 hours a day. I was really social, I was really happy all the time. I woke up like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning randomly, which I never did. And I just had so much energy, and I was working continuously, and nothing disturbed me. And also at that time I was really, as I said, I was into pickup artists, and at that time I kind of left it behind because I started to see women as pure souls, and I started to see being part of me. So I felt there was no reason to try to be with them, for example, like in a physical way. But this experience was there, and then within that experience, there was also time that me and a friend of mine, we went to a university, and there was a professor from South America speaking about I think it was the Red Book from Carl Gustav Jung. Maybe you heard of this? You know Carl Gustav Jung, no?
Yes, I know him, yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the Red Book is about, but I think it's a collection of thoughts he had and experiences he had. But at that time, I don't know exactly what was spoken, but I asked a question, and I really had a big false ego that was thinking like, yeah, I know all this stuff, and then after that lecture, because based on my question, I don't know what question I asked. Don't ask me, I forgot about that stuff. But one guy came to me and said, have you heard of the Hare Krishnas? So it was my first, I mean, as far as I remember, in this lifetime, it was the first inkling of like this name was put into my mind or to my presence, but I didn't do anything with it. And then very shortly after that...
was that after the 3 weeks or
no, that was
over,
still within
or?
that 3 weeks. Like in the 3 weeks I did a lot of things. I somehow was like, I was on, maybe you've seen the movie, there's also another movie with, what's this called? There's one guy, Bradley Cooper. You know this movie with Bradley Cooper? He has like long hair, handsome guy, and he takes some drugs and he's like on super focus. I think it's called
like
Focus, maybe even the movie.
Limitless, or I don't
Limitless,
know,
yeah.
But I think it's a series. I'm not sure.
No, it's a movie.
Okay,
I think there's a series and a movie about it. Yeah, but the movie I watched, and I felt like that, you know, but maybe the movie is much more extremer, but I felt a bit like that. I could really relate to that. But then after like around the 3rd week, then it was really funny. I saw a girl that I used to sleep with who actually was in a relationship. I'm actually a very bad person. I did a lot of bad stuff actually, but I was sleeping with a girl that was in a relationship. But I started to feel attraction for her, and then I messaged her when I came. I was actually at a friend's place in Germany, and then on my way back I thought, let me text her, let's see if I can see her again. I was thinking
still in this 3-week window.
Yeah. And it was really weird. Like I sent her a message like, let's see us again, let's see each other again. And that time she didn't have a relationship anymore, and because I thought, maybe we can have a relationship with her. The sex with her was really good, so. And she told me that, like, she responded like, no, we just see each other because we have a good sexual chemistry, that's it. And then somehow, by getting that reply, because I really felt like I want a girlfriend or someone in my life, I don't know why, but somehow I felt really attached to her. And then when she sent me that message, just out of nowhere, it's like you have this rose bubble, finished. All this, I came down again to my old consciousness, to my old being often mental, and you know, not on that limitless level. Just out of sudden, the drugs was finished.
Damn, okay.
Just out of the blue.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, my life was hectic like anything for 1 whole year until I came to Krishna consciousness. So a few things happened in that 1 year. One of my best friends, who I consider the most spiritual in my whole life, he was a Buddhist, he's Zen Buddhist also, practiced Zen Buddhism. With him I did ayahuasca also, and he ended his life. And so that made me really think about life. I got into, then 1 or 2 months later, I got into a relationship with one girl who we were really like mirrors to each other, like we had a really intense emotional relationship. But she was also very spiritual, but also very struggling in life, especially like, at that time I was really struggling in life. Like I was making a lot of money with Bitcoins and all that stuff, and the friendship was doing really good. I had like tens of thousands of euros on my account. But no matter how much money I had, it made me even more stressed because I was afraid of losing it. So in our philosophy they also say, no matter if you have no money or you have a lot of money, you can be both ways, you can be stressed about it. So because we're trying to grab for it, but you anyways get according, as I said, what your karma allows you to get. So you don't have to strive really hard for it. I mean, you should endeavor, but you shouldn't over endeavor. But yeah, I had like really tough life at the tough year. So this friend of mine committed suicide. I had a tough relationship.
You said with him you did ayahuasca. Was that before or?
No, that comes now. So I had a very tough year, and I was actually thinking to take ayahuasca close after. Around the time that we figured out this friend of mine committed suicide. And he was a really kind guy, but he never took care of himself. So there's also a lesson for you people. You can be very spiritual, want to help the rest of the world. And he was kind of that guy. He was actually a counselor for families. He was actually trying to help families, that are struggling together. He was actually helping them, but he never took help from others. He never asked for help. And this is what often you see. There's actually this girlfriend of mine who's also such kind of person. A bit, I think, is that we often want to help the world, but we first have to help ourselves. You cannot give what you don't have. At some point, you're so drained, then you might even end your life, for example. So, but this was really a shock for me because I don't know, because he was such a spiritual person. How could he do it? No one expected it, or at least almost no one expected it. Only the people that really were close to him, they thought they. We were a bit afraid what's happening. But he was also a guy a bit on himself also. But that happens when you don't share your issues. So maybe it gets a bit heavy now, but you know, you should always have a confidant in which you can share your issues. Even as monks, you know, we talk almost every few days. I share some issues that I personally have, because even as monks we have our issues. But the problem with, or the difference between spiritual people and non-spiritual people, I mean most of them at least, even spiritual people, it happens that most of the people, they don't share their issues with others because they're afraid, they're scared, they're shy, or they feel like they're useless, or whatever you can feel like. They're not worth it, they don't want to bother other people with it. But actually, part of a philosophy is to be open and to have, and that's actually what creates deep bonds between people, if you can really honestly share these things. And it's important, like, I remember that I didn't cry in my life for like 15 years. I cannot remember a day that I ever cried. And actually on the time I came to Krishna Coin, that was the first time I cried within like 50, maybe even 20 years that I remember of, maybe even longer. But the thing is, this made me stop like doing the ayahuasca, this suicide of this friend of mine, because it was such a shock in this mental state. You should not do such heavy psychedelics as ayahuasca. So I thought, let me wait. I want to still do it, but let me wait.
You planned to do ayahuasca, then this happened. So
Like, so I stopped a bit. So for around like a few months till around Christmas time, a tough relationship with my then girlfriend, but we also loved each other a lot. But it was also very intense because we were really mirrors for each other. We like mirroring our false egos to each other. At least that's how I understand it now. But then at some point I felt ready for doing finally the ayahuasca, and I did it, I think in November. So like 6.5 in Netherlands, somewhere around this area actually.
You can do ayahuasca here?
Yeah. I mean, it's not. You know, it's like, you know, in Netherlands we say like this.
Okay.
But you have to find a good place, because I later on found out another place where I also did some psychedelics. Someone committed suicide later on because they didn't guide him properly. So you have to have good guides. That's very important with this heavy stuff, like ayahuasca or any drugs. Actually, you always need. I mean, I'm not promoting psychedelics. I mean, ayahuasca, I believe it definitely can help you open up, but you really need, there's certain things you need to read to prepare yourself for such thing, like, I think it's David Leary or something, like the 6 things that need to be there, like setting, situation, the people, the facilitator, you know, and your mindset needs to be right. That's why I didn't do it in the time this friend of mine just took his life, because I was too unstable.
So you really need to be in the right place, right situation.
Yeah. Because it's heavy stuff. So the thing that happened to me, I did it 2 days in a row, so two days.
2 sessions,
Two sessions, and I don't know what the first and second day said, but in the end, like what I got from the whole experience is that they really have to go to my heart. I have to go to my heart. That's what the ayahuasca was telling me. And I saw all these crazy visuals. I saw aliens and all the funky stuff that you can see. I saw like bubbly Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse. I saw aliens meditating. I saw a lot of crazy stuff. But in the end, what was the essence was, I have to go to my heart. I'm really a mind person. That's just my constitution. So then following up on the ayahuasca, like I really felt something open up. And my then girlfriend, like, she said, like, when she was on my chest, like we were hugging, she felt like she was melting into me. Like my heart was so soft, and that's actually what you see when certain gurus in our society, in our teachings. When I meet them, you really feel like you really melt. You can actually really be yourself at them, because they have such a soft, such an open heart. And I had such a experience after ayahuasca for a couple of days. And my heart was really open up. It was really radiating love, let's say. But ayahuasca, it comes and it goes, and then you have to work on it. So my lesson was, you have to go to your heart. But then after a few weeks, it was December, around Christmas time, I decided, like, I really need to make a change in my life. I have to make a drastic change. So I traveled already a lot, and I did a lot of things. So my relationship was not going good, so I quit my relationship after Christmas time. Same time around my birthday, so I think the day after my birthday, I ended the relationship with my girlfriend. There was nothing bad going on, but I thought it's not going anywhere, so I quit the relationship. I quit my sales job. I was working from home, like as a freelance salesperson, calling in my pajamas from the couch with my roommate, We were calling people up, selling energy contracts, making good money, but it was not fulfilling. Bitcoins was at all-time high at that time, like the same price as is now, I heard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I look sometimes because I'm still a bit attached to these things.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's like I had a lot of money, the relationship was going good, so I quit everything, quit my job. I had some savings from all this Bitcoin investment. And then gradually I sold all the Bitcoin because it was going down like anything at the time. It just made me stressed. And then for 4 months, I was not working, I was not doing almost anything. And the only thing I was doing is going to sports, seeing friends, and exploring different part of spirituality. So I did different psychedelics. I did like, how's it called? Some
DMT
frog. Not DMT, but frog poison. I have here also some scars, like I think Kambo, I think it is. Some purifying, and I did some other things that they blow in your face. I tried different. I was really like searching, like, okay, what do I need to do? And I had all this funky experience. And this was actually the place where in the end also someone committed suicide afterwards. That happened a few years after I went there. I somehow I came to an article that said this.
Yeah.
So when you do psychedelics, really prepare, because it's very heavy stuff. If you're not prepared, you can also not deal with the experience you get. So just as a reminder, if you're going to do it. But it opened me up to more my heart, as the ayahuasca was telling me. And then I was doing Art of Living. Maybe you heard of this? Art of Living is from Ravi Shankar. And they do different breathing techniques, pranayama. And it also helps you to make the mind peaceful and experience more what's being told through the heart. But nothing was giving me ending results. So then, in the end, I said, okay, it's time to really start traveling again. But this time, I'm just going to visit spiritual places. I'm going to go to monasteries. I'm going to go to self-farming communities or whatever they do. But like, it needs to be something spiritual. So I wanted to go actually to some place in the middle of Germany, some yoga place, because I was doing already a lot of yoga. But they were full for the next half year or something, to the end of the summer. So, but I was really desperate. I was really feeling unhappy. I was really depressed at the time. And this is something that's probably needed for many people to really commit to something spiritual, to really look to it. And there's some curiosity often needs to be there, or just inquiry for absolute truth, as we say. But also, I believe personally there always needs to be some distress to really take it up. And that was definitely there for me, because I tried many things. I could not see myself in the future of some profession or whatever. I saw it was, okay, there's some enjoyment, but it's all temporary, time and space, it all comes and goes. So there needs to be something more substantial. So then I quit everything, and then this one yoga place in the middle of Germany, they're full. So I said my next option was, not knowing anything about Krishna consciousness, about the Hare Krishna movement. There's a temple in close to Luxembourg, and I said, let me go there. Let me volunteer and see what happens. And I didn't know anything. I thought it was something Jewish, because I remember seeing once a video of white guys dancing around in robes, and they all had big noses, because somehow I think Jews have big noses. I don't know why, it's a stupid thought, but I didn't know anything. Normally I'm a person that really looks into it, but I was so desperate that I said, I'm going to do this. And then when I was there, the first week I had to clean like a room, and we had to paint the room, and it was like really dirty, and I'm not used to doing manual labor so much. And I thought, I need to leave, this is so horrible. But I thought, let me be here, because it's also spiritual, and let me just see what happens, And then in the second week, there was a festival called Kirtan Mela. So they do making a lot of spiritual music. Like they do mantra sing, but then with traditional Indian instruments. And there was a German guru actually there. He's the son of one of the main managers of Deutsche Bahn, from a very wealthy family actually. But he became a monk, and he was there, and I remember during one of the kirtans he was singing, during one of those meditation he was singing, something just broke in my heart. I couldn't explain it, but just I was crying like anything. And I was a bit shy. I'm normally very shy to cry in front of people. But from that point on, that was the first time I actually cried in my life that I can ever remember. So I didn't cry because I always kept my emotions in myself. Men especially, they are really afraid for crying. But it keeps the emotions stuck, and it can even create like physical ailments. But that time I cried, and I felt, after this cry, I felt so light and so happy and so peaceful. And also when I was there for around 3 weeks, I could see these people were much happier even than the people I met anywhere in the world. Just all of them, almost all of them were really much happier. They also struggle, but they're in general much happier. They had a very clear focus on what life is about, like a higher understanding of life, like a spiritual understanding of life, and it made so much sense to me. I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, one of our main books that we study. It made so much sense. And yeah, and this feeling I just got from this meditation, like something broke up to me, and this is like a feeling of happiness that I did never experience before. It was higher than any form of happiness I ever experienced.
Like,
Yeah.
did you do anything, or did you just listen to him sing?
Yeah, so when we sing in the temple, like we do this kirtan, it's called. We sit together. I mean, this form of, we also sometimes we do dancing. It's like, you engage the body also in this meditation. It's a very dynamic meditation, let's say. But at that time we're sitting still, and the guru is singing. But because he has such a pure heart, he sings from his heart, and this vibration. So we say everything has a vibration. So, and we sing the Maha Mantra. Maha means great, and Mantra means, as I said before, Man means mind, and Tre means to deliver. So it is the big mantra that can deliver the mind from all the false concepts. And when it's the mantra that he sings is enthused with pure love, with pure devotion, bhakti. A practice called Bhakti-yoga. Yoga means connection, bhakti means love and devotion. When it's infused with pure bhakti and pure love, or as pure as possible, and you sing this, then it also influences people around you, or every living entity. Even if they don't consciously listen to it, just this vibration has an effect on you. Same like if for example, you're sitting in a room and downstairs someone is playing really horrible loud music, it also affects your consciousness. It makes you disturbed. But if someone is like singing really beautifully, you just sit there, you just listen to it, like, oh, it's very nice.
Yeah.
But this is even spiritual, because it's not just words, but words with deep meaning of love and devotion. And I felt that. I felt it when, like, actually last week I felt it again. He was in Amsterdam, this guru, and he was also singing. I felt again I had to cry. I kept my crying to myself because I don't know, for whatever reason I didn't want to see other people to show, because it's not often that it happens. You really need to be focused and really need to be peaceful in the mind and really need to try to pray from your heart. But I got some mercy. We call this like some mercy in the beginning you get. And it was a feeling like of relief and happiness, and something I was searching for such a long time, which I believe everybody's searching for. It doesn't say have to come through this form, but this is something I believe everybody's actually looking for. We look for this happiness, like we say, the soul's anandami bhyasat, it's looking always for happiness. It's always looking for, ananda means bliss. And not just happiness in jolly, but just some experience. The reason why we do this, why do you think people are now walking around here and going to this music stuff here? Why? Because they enjoy it. That's why. If it would be horrible, they wouldn't go there. So that's why we do things. Why you're studying, because it makes you, it engages your mind. It gives you some kind of joy. So that's, our motivation in the end is always some form of joy. But the material joy is always temporary. It's bounded to time and space, there's a beginning and an end. And I've noticed that throughout my whole life, that for me it was very quickly, the joy is finished. So I also had to get new thing, new, better, more beautiful girl, more than one girl, more money, this, that. But it was in the end very empty. It's all very materialistic, very egocentric, very selfish. But this singing is also a form of giving. Like he gives the love through the mantra. That's like a medium through which he shares that for God. Like we sing for God, and we say God is not just a person somewhere in the sky. No, He's actually everything. There's the physical creation, that's Brahman. Then He's there in the heart. So we say this: we are a spirit soul, and we are in the heart. And next to us is Atma, and then next to us is Paramatma. That's the super soul. Atma is soul. Para means super. So He's the super soul, and He also instructs us. But that's intuition actually. That's actually what intuition really is. Intuition means God in the heart. But often it's filtered through the false ego and the mind. So then it's like saying the sun is shining. It's very bright, but when the clouds are in front of it, it's very horrible here in the Netherlands. But like, for example, this morning the clouds were gone, and then it's like really nice. And then in a few hours the clouds are also gone, and then it's more nice again. So the same way, like, the false ego is like a cloud in front of the bright light of the sun.
So in that moment, it like lifted for a second, and
the clouds were gone.
Oh yes.
My mind was I was focusing my mind. I was like, the mind was not living me, but I used the mind to focus So it was all aligned. So you can say like there's like from here to here, let's say here's the super soul, here's God. That's the super soul. It's the pure light, the pure love. And then you are there as a soul. Like say you are here as a soul. And then, but from the soul to here, there's a lot of filters. So there's the subtle body, which consists of the mind, intention, false ego, which makes you identify and with the body and with the mind. And then there's the mind. There's the body also. And all these filters, they filter our consciousness. So consciousness is actually the indicator of presence of soul. Like for example, when someone dies, someone doesn't die, but the karma is finished for this body, and the soul moves on. The soul is eternal, but there cannot be any interaction with the living entity that's actually inside the body. Like for example, like if someone is sitting in the car, you can scream at the car, and someone might respond to you if he's kind, or like someone is sitting in the car, and you say, "Hey, please, can you move over? Because I need to pass." And he can do it because he's inside the car. But if nobody's in the car will stay lying down and you have to move the car. Understand? It's the same with the body. So if nobody's in the body will not move. Maybe if a strong wind comes or somebody else moves the body. That's actually what the soul is, just moving the vehicle of the body. And then the mind, intelligence, and also there's the false ego. It can be living us, or we can use it to live life in a spiritual way. So it can go both ways. So yoga helps you to control the mind, to understand the false ego, and to understand that we have a spiritual ego, a true ego. And the false ego is, you're German, I'm Dutch. Yeah. We're both men, you're student, I'm monk. That's just just a role. Yeah. It's a role. It's not the real you. It's a you, but it's the temporary you. So we should play that role. Like we say also, we have Sanatan Dharma, the eternal Dharma. The occupation of the soul is to serve God. But then we also have Swadharma, which means the temporary Dharma, the Dharma of our psychophysical nature. For example, you're a student, I don't know, what are you studying?
Yes, cognitive science and artificial intelligence, actually.
Okay. Well, let's say you do something with artificial intelligence, you're going to make some very advanced artificial intelligence. So that's your Swadharma, but it's temporary. And we say in our philosophy, we use, for example, I like to give lectures. I like to promote things, so I use that, but I use it then in service of my Sanatana Dharma, my eternal relationship with God. But most people use their Swadharma for the service of their false ego, for their own sense gratification, for the satisfaction of the five senses, the eyes, the tongue, the nose, the touch, and so on, and the mind. So that's what most people do, and including myself, I also still do that, but it's like a training. I cannot straight away press 200 kilos. I need to work towards that. Same with spiritual, it's muscle, you train over time. So we need to train the mind to be a friend instead of an enemy. So we're coming back to that experience that I felt, this intense love and this melting and this letting go of emotion and this crying. It's like, because I believe at that time I was really focused, by whatever reason I was able to do this. Partly it's because of the service I did. Like the practice we do is much like this, three main components. One is the meditation, the chanting, which we mainly do ourselves on the beats we have here, which I showed you last time. And then there's the component of studying the philosophy, like the Bhagavad Gita. Like it's recommended to us to study at least 1 hour a day. At least 1 hour a day. And then the other part, which often neglected, unfortunately, by many people, and even the second part is often neglected, is the devotional service. So actually, you have to apply this wisdom. So a lot of people think when you think about spirituality, you're going to live somewhere in the forest or in the mountains alone. No, actually, our philosophy is very much into the world, but try to live in the world with a consciousness or spiritual consciousness. So very simple example, like I often give, is the knife. Like a knife can be used in many ways, and two extreme ways can be, one person might use the knife to do an operation on someone and save someone's life, but the knife can also be used to take someone's lives. And it all has to do with your conscience behind the usage of the knife. The same like, there's a famous, I think it's a Buddhistic example, like before enlightenment, roll up the stone up the mountain. After enlightenment, roll up the stone up the mountain. But the difference is behind the consciousness of the activity. The activity might be still the same on the outside, on the material level, but the consciousness behind the activity is different. So we say, if you want to be happy, don't look for more money, more beautiful wife, better career. Try to elevate your consciousness behind your activity. Maybe you have to change your wife. If really the outward situation is really that bad, okay, then maybe you have to change it. If it's in your means and if it's in your karma. But more importantly than that, in the end, is to surrender and change your consciousness. So our philosophy called Krishna consciousness, to become conscious of God, like understanding that there's a higher power actually moving everything. If you call him Krishna or Allah, it's all the same. There's only one God. God means one. There can only be one supreme, else it would not be supreme. But he has many forms and many names. He comes also in an impersonal energy if you don't like to see him as a person. But that's a little bit, I prefer to speak to you than speak to this glass.
Yeah.
Same way, I prefer to speak to a God. I mean, now I understand. Before I didn't believe. I was actually hardcore atheist. I was really against religion because I saw a lot of bad things. But then later understand that's not the religion that's bad. It's the conscience of the people that follow this religion that's bad. The religion is good. The spiritual practice in the essence is pure. But the conscience of the people, like even in our philosophy, to be honest, there's also people who raped children. What happens also in the Catholic Church, which probably happens even in Islam. But it's not that the Islam or Catholicism is bad or Christian conscience is bad. No, it's the conscience of the person behind it because he hasn't applied the process properly. He hasn't been honest to himself. Like we say also, there's 4 defects in our existence. One is we have imperfect senses. That means we cannot perceive everything that is actually happening around us. So that's why also your perception of life all the time changes. Because if you have perfect senses, you would have all the time the same perception of life. And then you're easily illusioned. So also kind of the same thing. And then you easily make mistakes. Why? Because you're following your own false ego. And then the last thing is the cheating propensity. You not only cheat others often. Like just look at, which American president doesn't lie to the people about what he's going to do and what he's in the end going to do. So this is like, we're being cheated all the time. But the more important thing is we're cheating ourselves. And of all these 4 things, the first 3, we cannot do anything about, but we can at least be honest with ourselves. So we can actually be honest, like, okay, I have a lot of, for example, why is it happening that, my understanding is why it happens that, for example, priests rape, for example, young boys or children, is because the sex propensity, the physical attraction between different living or between, the same entity and even between man and man. Why? Because the sex propensity is very, very strong. So even in our philosophy, I myself also include, I'm thinking to get married. Why? Because my attraction to women is just too strong. And this is very strong to overcome because it needs more purification, more getting rid of the false ego. And it takes time. So in our philosophy, we have a system for that most people actually in the end should get married to purify this sexual desire. Sex, when it's used for procreation and for purification in the end, in a marriage, then it's good. But nowadays, if you look at the modern world, especially in the Western world, I heard around 50% on average get divorced. Like when I look at my parents' time, those people, there was like maybe just 10%, but nowadays already 50%. And in some countries, I even researched, it's 80 to 90% of the people divorce. In Spain and in Portugal, it's really high. It's really high. And why is that? Because we're not trying to live in a spiritual way, we're actually trying to enjoy our senses. And because it's like chewing gum. In the beginning it's sweet and the sweetness goes away and then we want the new chewing gum. And I say often nowadays we even chew out relationships and then spit it out and take the next one. That's how people are. We say normally we should use things. And nowadays we use people and love things, but it should be other way around. We should love people and use things. Understand?
And
So one guru said, like, nowadays we love things, and use people, but it should be the other way around. And that can only be really done when we actually practice some spiritual understanding, that actually this desire, this always looking for happiness, when we keep looking on the material level, then we will be always unhappy and we start to look for more newer things. I mean, I'm 36 and even in my lifetime I can already see how much faster the world has gone, how shorter the time span of people have become. Like, it's really hard to even have an attention of a 10-year-old. Like, they're like, maybe in a few years everybody has ADHD because they're like, their time span is like all over the place. So it's because we're looking for these impulses, and we're getting dull, so we need more intense things. I mean, just look at movies. The sex scenes in movies have increased more intense. Why? Because that's sex sells, of course. And there's just a few examples, but you can see it all around you. If you become aware of it, you can see it all around you. Until we look to the real happiness within, which I then experienced in this temple 6 years ago, which I experienced that this is the happiness that I was actually looking for. And I'm 100% convinced that everybody's looking for this, knowingly or unknowingly. The ones who are knowing, they are fed up with material life and they understand there must be something better. Why else am I here? And the people who don't believe it, they're looking for it, but they still think it's out there in the material world. There is happiness, but it's temporary.
It's the search for like this fulfilled happiness.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So how can, if you really believe in the spirit, so how can the spirit soul be happy with something material? Because the spirit soul is eternal, and everything here around us is, temporary. I mean, I also have a MacBook laptop, not so nice one as yours, but at some point you will need a new one.
Yes.
Everything in the material world works like that, You can marry the most beautiful wife in the world, but even she will get wrinkles, and she will start complaining when she has her period. That's material life. It's everything fades, comes and fades. In the beginning, just look. When I look at, I was just visiting my grandfathers, and and also my parents. They're most happy to see my grandchildren, not me or my sister, but my grand. Why? Because they fulfill because they're very joyful. And so that it's very selfish actually. I mean, it's hard to see that in your own parents and family, but they're more happy to see their grandchildren than to see their children. Why? Because they're more happy. But this wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita and the spiritual texts, they're very sobering up. And in the beginning can be like, oh man, it makes life very depressive. But then we start to understand, okay, then what we're going to do then? Okay, we have to live on the spiritual platform. And this is what I experienced in the temple 6 years ago. And then going a bit further into the story, so I was there for 3 weeks. And then I went back to Groningen, the north of the Netherlands, where I lived at the time. I had a room in a student house. And decided I'm going to quit everything and I'm going to, follow this path. I mean, I anyways quit already my job, my relationship and everything. So it was very simple to get rid of my apartment and just go on. Trying to follow this search. And then I went again to a Vipassana center. It was my second time. And again, then I felt like I'm not the body. I really had like fully distancing self from my mind and from my body. Like I had such an experience. But the thing was, at the end of this 10-day retreat, I was planning actually to go. It was in Belgium. I think it's the same place where you did it. Or where you're gonna do it. And my plan was, still do it, because I think it's a good experience to have. Yeah. But what I've experienced is at the end, because I already had this taste, I got a taster, let's say, like off the on the street people giving out free Coca-Cola, but that's in the end to give you a taster. It's a trick. I mean, they're only after your money in the end. But I mean, unless you're mentally strong enough, you can maybe just get a lot of free stuff and don't buy it anyways. But there's always a taste. So I got a taster. Even there's marketing in spirituality. Yeah. So Krishna, God gave me a little taste. Like, okay, if you show some love for me, you will experience something you cannot experience in any form of material enjoyment. You cannot experience. So I had this taste, and then at the end of this 10-day science retreat, I did it like really rigorously. I was like sitting 1.5 hours, some nights even almost up to 2 hours. Some days I think it was. Some points it was even 2 hours. Sitting still, it was really peaceful, and I really felt like completely distant from all the pains in my knees and stuff like that. I was really aloof from this. But then in the end of the 10 days, my idea was I go to some permaculture farm in Belgium but I got a message that they could not receive me because the wife was getting a pregnancy. She was almost in labor, so it was not the right time for to receive me. So I was thinking, what am I going to do now? And then this Hare Krishna temple in Germany was not so far from there. So I decided, okay, let me call up them, let me go there. But what I felt in the day that I was staying behind, when I was not fully absorbed in this voidism of what this meditation gives, this emptiness, this peace of mind, is that I felt really empty. Because this meditation of Vipassana actually distance yourself from everything. So what I often say, like a very simple example, like if you have a thing from you have, for example, misery. If you have like a graph of misery being in the 0 to minus numbers, and then happiness being from the 0 to plus numbers.
Yeah.
So what I say is the materialist, they're mostly in the minus, and sometimes they have a little bit plus, but it's always very temporary.
Mm-hmm.
So then maybe they're in +1 or +2. And the scale is unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
But they never go much higher because material habit is very temporary. Sometimes you have a high blissful experience, but it's temporary, so it comes and goes. But what the Buddhists say, so they're very attached. And the Buddhists, what they say, no, we have to be detached from everything. There's no happiness, good is bad, and bad is bad. Because we should not be attached to also not to good stuff, to the bliss, the happy material experience. So everything.
So they're always zero.
Everything is zero. Yeah.
Yes.
So they want to get to the level of zero, complete tranquility, voidism. That's actually what voidism is. It's complete tranquility, and it's kind of like, if I would have to give a face expression, it's like this. That's how I felt like. Yeah. But it felt also peaceful.
Yeah.
It's peace. But then, how I express the yoga teachings, and then mainly the Hare Krishna Bhakti-yoga teaching, is that yoga means connection with the higher source of happiness. As I said, we are Ananda Maybe Asad, we are pleasure-seeking entities. The living soul, not just within the human body, but in every living entity, they're looking for happiness. Even a dog gets sad when he doesn't get the right attention. Yeah. Even dogs can get quickly depressed. So even every living entity is looking for happiness. But as a human, we can contemplate, okay, there's a higher happiness. So the people that actually try to connect with God, also Christians or Muslims, when they do it sincerely, but unfortunately it's not often happening anymore. But when they do it sincerely, then they can experience a happiness that is not from this world, that is higher than any form of. There's happiness in material world, but it's bound to time and space. So it's always limited, goes with a lot of endeavor. So why not use that endeavor to actually experience spiritual happiness? And spiritual happiness is actually always growing. This connection can only grow stronger over time, and there's no end to it. Mm-hmm. It's an unlimited strengthening bond. It's a relationship, basically, because you're a person, God is a person, you have an eternal relationship, and a relationship. So even if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or any relationship, and you get to know each other better, more, deeper, the relationship gets more juice, let's say. Yeah. So in the same way, the relationship with God can get more juice the stronger you make this connection. The more you endeavor for this relationship, even with material relationship, the more you endeavor for this relationship, the more relishable this relationship stays. You know, when I was traveling, for example, my relationships were very shallow, very temporary. Like, okay, 1-2 days, you have some extreme fun, you're going to skydive together, and it's all fun. But then after a few days, you know, you move on and, you know, you forget the person. I mean, maybe you remember him because you did something amazing, but it's not so important relationship. It's just very temporary. So we actually say the stronger you make this relationship, which is an ongoing process for eternity, the more happiness you feel. Mm-hmm. Because we say God is Satchitananda Vigraha. His form is eternal, it's full of knowledge, and it's full of bliss. So just by connecting through God, we can actually also experience this eternality, because we say in the Bhagavad Gita, it said, the soul is an eternal part and parcel of God. So God is the whole, and we are part of the whole. So let's say you have a machine, and you are a screw in that machine. So the whole machine is God, mm-hmm. and you are just one of the screws. And we say when the screw is out, the screw is useless. The screw is out of it, it's just lying around, it's just garbage. But when the screw goes into the machine, it actually fulfills some purpose. So when we screw ourselves into the connection with the machine, with God, through our yoga, we can actually experience the function of this machine. And that's basically bliss.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically bliss. Even not Einstein, Friedrich Nietzsche said, he didn't believe in God, but he said, I could only believe in a God who loves to dance. And in our philosophy, we actually believe in a God who loves to dance. Funny enough.
Yeah.
I think he didn't know about Krishna consciousness, but it's funny he said that actually. He was actually atheist as far as I know.
Yeah.
He didn't believe in God. But actually this exchange of love, I will not go too deep because it's too esoteric, but we can see actually God is all the time here. The thing is, our false ego, our material consciousness, is not experiencing it. But what I've experienced through many years, especially when I go out on the street and distribute books, I can actually see God, because God is in the heart of every living entity, I can actually see God acting through other living entities and just the whole creation. Mm-hmm. And this is something you can start to see more and more and more the more you get connected and the more you surrender. Now, the Bhagavad Gita says in the end, abandon all varieties of religion, because it's not so much about if you go Sunday to the church or if you go 5 times a day, you pray to Mecca, or if you wake up 4 o'clock in the morning and start dancing and singing. But what's in the end important is that you surrender. It's about the devotion and the love behind the practice. That is actually important. And he said, and then God says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, I will shall deliver you from all sinful reactions, do not fear. And this is the fear, like as we said before, this movie, Fight Club.
Yes.
It's the fear of letting go. We want to be in control. The reason why we're actually here in this material world is because we want to be the controller. We wanted to enjoy without God. That's actually why we're here. So we go through the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's another scripture you have. It says there's 8.4 million life forms, of which 400,000 of them are different human forms of life, even in different planets. So even aliens, they're kind of a human form. So we go through all these life forms trying to find happiness, trying to be the controller, trying to enjoy without God. But we say, no, we have to give. Like even on a material level, we say, when we do something for someone else without expecting anything in return, that's the highest love. That's the highest form of happiness.
That's like the way to get happy. You don't get happy by chasing it yourself, but more by
giving.
Yeah, by giving without expecting. Yeah.
But the thing is, a lot of people do it only on a material level. Like for example, they give to charity and stuff like that. Well, I see often charity people on the street because I'm also often on the street. But when I speak with them, I understand they're not doing it for the charity, but they do it for the commissions. Mm-hmm. mostly. Yeah. Not always, but mostly. I also did it, so I know. That was also my motivation at the time. There's probably a few other ones, but the thing is still material. So our guru said, like, it's like, when someone is drowning in the ocean, like if you help charity, for example, sending children to school, giving them food, it's for the body, it's for the mind. It's like when someone is drowning in the ocean, it's like saving the clothes of the drowning person, but not the person inside the clothes. You understand?
Mm-hmm. No.
So, you understand?
I don't know. Say this again.
So like all this charity work, it's all nice.
Yes,
and it's, of course, we also have food programs in India, like we feed poor children. I think we distribute in India like million plates of free food every day. It's all sponsored. But the thing is that spiritualized food, so when people eat that food, they actually make spiritual advancement. That's a secret ingredient we have in our... because you can actually spiritualize different things by the consciousness, how you prepare it, how you use it. Like for example, if you have 2 pizzas, one is cooked by a mother with her love for you, and one you eat it and buy at the Turkish shop. Let's say it's the exact same recipe, cooked in the same oven and everything is the same. It looks exactly the same from a visual point of view, but still tastes different. Why? Because your mother put love inside of it, because he loves you. I mean, I hope so.
Yeah.
Let's say it. That's a different ingredient. So we put, that's actually the ingredient, that's called Bhakti. Bhakti means love and devotion. We put the love and devotion inside the food. And I have actually experienced it when I go to the temple, when it's cooked by a very advanced priest, like we call it brahmanas, and he puts his pure focus and love and devotion inside, it tastes completely different. And I know now, after a few years, when I sometimes eat food, a pizza somewhere in a normal restaurant, I feel like eating like nothing. I feel like some emptiness inside. And it's because of the bhakti that's not missing. It's hard to explain. You have to experience that. So that is kind of you have to experience. But missing ingredient which you cannot see with your eye, you cannot smell it, you cannot taste it with the tongue, but you can taste it with your soul. And so our philosophy says, when you want to give up all this material taste, all this desire for material happiness, you need to experience a higher taste. So even, for example, in the, maybe you heard of AA, Alcohol Anonymous?
Yes.
They even have a step, you need to surrender to a higher source. Why is that? Because when someone is addicted to drugs, the only way he can actually give it up is if he experiences something that gives him a higher form of enjoyment. That's the only way to give it up. So you need to have a higher form of enjoyment. And the highest form of enjoyment, according to our philosophy, and I guess also the AA, is to a higher source, a higher power, so God. And as we said, like, God is full of happiness. So when we connect with God, we can actually experience that happiness. And it's an ongoing process. I've seen it in this German guru, for example. He always smiles, like he has like you can just not like be affected by it.
Yeah.
It's nothing touches. I mean, things touch him, but nothing change. Influences consciousness. Like he's just there. But he's still growing further. And when you're on that level, you can do things that are out of this world. Just as an example, the one who brought this Krishna consciousness to the West in the 65, Srila Prabhupada, he was 70 years old when he took a step on the land in New York, and it was like really snowing at the time. I think it was even in winter when he was there, or at least he was there in winter. He was a very old man. He was there completely alone. He didn't know anyone there. He just had a few pesos on him, a few dollars. He had I think it was 3 Ks of books. That's all he had. But his guru's instruction was, you go to the West and preach this wisdom, because this is what people need. And for 1 or 2 years, almost nothing happened, but he still kept going. He was 70 years old. I mean, who does it when he's 70? But he was still going. And then within the last, so from 70 to 82, until he passed away, he managed to set up 108 temples, have 5,000 disciples, and it was a household name. Like everybody knew about it. The Beatles, they were helping us a lot. And now we're building, at the moment, I think this year it should be finished. We're building the biggest temple in the world.
Yeah, you told me about this last time. Yeah.
We're not so big, like in amount of people, but but like just to say, like, because it was so surrendered, as I said, this verse, like, Ben overrides a religion, just surrender unto me, do not fear, I shall deliver you from all sin for reaction. So he had no fear, he had full faith in his instruction of a guru, because we say there's a mercy comes from up to down, it flows down. So it's called parampara. So if you ever think to take up a spiritual path, according to our philosophy, it should always be a philosophy that is not made up by some person. Like, I don't want to criticize anyone, but there's a lot of so-called gurus out there, some with even very big names, have millions of followers, but they're actually not real gurus. They actually lead you astray because they don't follow a certain of lineage. So because spirituality is also, to make spiritual progress, there needs to be endeavor, but there also needs to be mercy. And mercy comes from up to down. So there's a parampara system. It means like lineage, like a lineage of teacher on teacher. So it's being taught by teacher on teacher, because spiritual wisdom cannot just be conveyed by words. It also has to be conveyed by bhakti, love and devotion.
So you have to be taught by the right teacher.
Exactly, someone who realized the knowledge. Right? And our philosophy, it says, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Render service unto him and inquire from him. He can show the truth. He can show you the way because he has seen the truth. So spirit, like material knowledge, is all intellectual, but spiritual knowledge is not just intellectual, but it's more important is what's the realization of the teacher. So if the teacher has a very low realization, like for example in the Bhagavad Gita there's around 600 to 800 translations, most of them are written by professors, and they haven't practiced the wisdom, they haven't realized the wisdom. So spirituality is all about realization. Like for example, I explained before with this Vipassana, I had experiences that I'm not the mind, I'm not the body. I can tell you this, but when you don't have experience it, you can say, yeah, maybe he's just talking out of mouth. He's just crazy, talking nonsense, maybe he's just crazy, you know. But many people experience this, more not than did, but there's more people that experience, and I've honestly talked with many of such people. I mean, they don't seem crazy to me. I mean, maybe I look crazy, I don't know, but I mean, you need to be a bit crazy because you become crazy from the material world, but you know, depends what is crazy, depends which standards you take. But, yeah.
I don't know, if you wanted to say something, I would just say,
no, you go on. I'm just rattling and I don't know where I'm going.
I understand. But coming back to your story, so at that point you are finished with the Vipassana and you're going back to the...
yes. To
the Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, why? Because, I mean, I didn't know where to go anyways, but the important thing what I want to share is, I still believe there's a space for Vipassana. But the thing is, it's not the end station. It's still like, let's say there's an end station, and in that station you want to stay, because there, you know, as I said, connection keeps on going. But for me, Vipassana was an in-between station. You know, for example, I want to go from here to Amsterdam, you have to go over Utrecht, I think. Let's say you have to go over Utrecht. So I was staying in Utrecht at that time. But I wanted to go to Amsterdam because I wanted to feel the bliss. And I know, and from because the second time I did it in Belgium, that maybe was like 5-6 years in between from my first time. My experience from that practice was never as intense or as amazing or as the thing that I was really looking for, this happiness, this bliss and this crying, this heartfelt emotion that I was actually looking for, which I didn't know I was looking for that, but that is actually what I felt I was missing in my life. I didn't experience that there, and I could see in the eyes of the people that were practicing this for many years, and you have like, the beginning is 10 days science, but you even go up to 90 days of science. Okay, now I'm going to scare you a bit.
90 days?
Yeah, some people do 90-day complete science. But I will tell you a little bit.
Please.
A bit interesting. I mean, you can still do it, but you do it whatever you want. We call it spiritual suicide. Buddhism.
Okay.
Why? Because the Buddhists don't acknowledge a relationship with God and the desire of the soul of happiness. So we say the soul always, as I said many times, the soul always wants happiness. And when it identifies with the mind and the body, it thinks happiness should be coming through the mind and the body. But we understand also happiness through the mind and body is all temporary, because it's all time and space. So it has a beginning and an end. And so the Bhagavad Gita says the wise person does not take part in such enjoyments, because it has a beginning and end. So when you actually become wise, you start to understand, hey, this is a beginning and end. Many people keep going on because they still have the karma for it. But karma has also time and space. Karma is a material law. So at some point the karma is worked out, and then maybe you have a financial setback, or you have a very heavy disease, or for most people it only happens at the time of death. You know, then people start to think about life. But we say, like, one thing is to escape it, to run away from it and hide in the mountains, or, for example, do Vipassana. And it's good, because it helps me. I still do it, but I do it with another mindset behind it, just to help me. It helps me a lot to distance myself from my thoughts and from the sense. I'm a very sensitive person, so all the thoughts and all the things happening around me, this Vipassana helps me to kind of find a peace. But peace is not the end goal. The end goal is love. All we need is love. And it's true. It's a very cheeky line, but it's actually true. Yeah. So, but we often mistake love with lust, or we often mistake lust with love. So all the material happiness, the basis is lust. Is it looking for sense enjoyment? Is all lust. Sex is lust. There can be an affection, but the highest affection is still spiritual. Understanding on the spiritual level, on the spiritual level, your soul, I'm soul, and even within families in our tradition, we say like the real love is coming from our connection to with in between God, because we are in the end all, as I said, in our philosophy we believe God is everything. We're all part of God. We're not God, so we have an individuality. Like every living entity, every living soul has this individuality, but you're also part of God. Like as an example of the screw, like the screw is its own part. Let's say the screw has a personality, and the machine has also a personality. So we're part of the whole machine, but we also have our own individuality. And through that individuality, we are able to reciprocate. And God even reciprocates with us through showing us the way and whatever. So this is something that's not there in Buddhism or in philosophies that don't believe there's a higher power as a person. So you cannot experience that bliss. It's very still. It's void. I mean, it's voidism. It's nirvana. What they can reach. And secondly, it's just impractical. I mean, we can practice Bhakti-yoga, practice the Krishna conscious path, and be very active in the world. We can be presidents, we can be billionaires, we can be householders, we can be working in gardens, we can also be monks. But most people in our philosophy, they're just students or working class people. But they understand that's their temporary dharma, the temporary occupation, swadharma. But they use that as a vessel to, in the end, reach Sanatana Dharma, their eternal occupation of developing relation with God. And that's eternal, that goes on and on. But the Buddhists, they say no, they don't believe that exists.
They just try to go into nothing, which is like zero everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Spiritual suicide, interesting.
Yeah, so in our philosophy we call it spiritual suicide. I mean, the technique of Vipassana, I'm still practicing it, but I practice it with a different reason. But it's not an end goal, it's an in-between stage. So I need to go, so for me, for example, when I wake up, like because I'm mentally, I have a very powerful mind, so I also do yoga and the breathing techniques, because it makes my mind peaceful. It's not the end station, because a lot of gurus, they give that as an end station, but it's not the end station, because what are we looking for? All you need is love. So, I mean, we cannot get love through breathing or by just sitting still. No, it goes through relationship. I mean, even on the material level, the highest form of happiness is through relationship with people we really love. That's higher than having $1 million on the bank account. Even millionaires, they recognize, like, you know, what's really important is my family, my children. Yeah. So even on the material level, that's more important. But even, you know, our children and our wife, our husband, our parents, they will also at some point pass away. It can even happen that our child passes away before us. It happens. I had friends like that had children, they passed away before them. But this philosophy teaches, okay, that's temporary. I mean, it's important relationship because you're karmically bonded, especially your parents and your children, and your wife. They're the most important people for you in your life, karmically seen. But it's also temporary. But you have to live that life in a conscious way, of course. But in the end, all with the end goal to reach a relationship with God.
And not just to zero everything. Like
you can try it, but
but that's the difference. Yeah.
But understand it from our philosophy point of view. It's called spiritual suicide. Actually, why is it called spiritual suicide? Because as I said, like the spirit soul wants to experience happiness. When we identify with the mind and body, we look outwards. I mean, why is this lady wearing a nice dress? Because she wants to feel the warm breeze of the sunny days that almost never happen in the Netherlands. That's why she's doing that. Why is she going there? Because there's nice music there. She's doing that because she wants to experience some happiness. That's why she's doing that. Why are we talking now? Because it's, you know, it's some we are intellectual persons, so we like to talk.
Yes.
But if you're not intellectual, you will get bored out of hell and say, let me go out and let's go drink a beer at the pub. It's different interest because we also have a psychophysical nature, which we are built up. But we say we use a psychophysical nature in a way to, in the end, connect with God. Okay, some things, for example, we don't do drugs, we don't do alcohol. We don't intoxicate, we don't gamble because these are detrimental. There's no good. There's no way to spiritualize this. But in general, almost everything you can spiritualize. So this helps you. This is yoga. This is actually yoga. This is the part of yoga that everyone can do. Like not everybody can stand on his head and breathe like very intensely and swim under ice like Wim Hof. Not everybody can do that. I mean, it's very amazing what Wim Hof do. I like to take cold baths and do his breathing techniques. But it's not an end goal. It's not. It gives peace of mind. And it helps us maybe experience the God in the heart. It can help experience, like yoga, this kind of yoga, like they say Ashtanga yoga, like the normal kind of yoga, the traditional form of yoga, physical yoga, can help you to experience God in the heart. And but to experience God as a person all around us and everywhere, in every living entity, that's not able to achieve with this part. That's only been done by Bhakti-yoga. And even for Ashtanga yoga, or Hatha yoga, to be successful, there needs to be a component of bhakti and devotion, love and devotion to bhakti.
So at that point, you decide to be.
Yeah. So you know, I was an atheist for all my life. I never believed in God, but I had some experiences, and you know, I was very desperate. So as I said before, there needs to, for people to come to spiritual path, at least for our path, there often needs to be a little bit of distress. There needs to be like, chewing gum is not sweet anymore, no matter how many you take, no matter if you take a $1 million chewing gum from Willy Wonka's chocolate factory or whatever, it's still not sweet. It's not, you've done it all. You've lived all through all these million forms of life. You chewed it all, and you're done with it. So I've had such a feeling.
At the end of the Vipassana?
No, in general, throughout my whole life, but it became, it's a like I said, your conscious, the view of your life now is different from in the beginning of your life, or even from a day maybe before.
Yes.
So that changes all the time by all the experiences, by all the people you talk to, by all the things you read, whatever you experience, that changes your consciousness, because it becomes part of your filter through which your pure consciousness goes through. So, but that filter you can break down, you can dissect. And I understood this part. These people are really happy. We have amazing food. Sometimes we call the kitchen religion. We have the best vegetarian food in the world, the most tasty vegetarian food in the world. People are very happy. The philosophy makes very much sense. I don't understand everything. I don't believe everything. It took me half a year before I believed, okay, there is a God. It took me some time. But I could see these people have something. So let me give it a try. I mean, I anyways gave up everything. And why? Because I was I was materially exhausted. I couldn't see any form of material happiness that could actually really fulfill me. So, but I felt something which I couldn't explain, but it made sense to me, and I gave everything. So I said, okay, let me just go for it. Let me just, we say sometimes when people go to the beach, some people, they sit on the side and they look at the beach and they think, oh, it would be nice to swim in the ocean. And other people, they just throw off the clothes and they dive in. So I decided I'm going to be the latter, the second one. Yeah. Dive in, because they say, if you want to know if honey is sweet, you can look at it all you want, but you will never know if it's sweet once you start putting a spoon in it and put it in your mouth and taste it. Yeah. So to understand if chocolate or anything is sweet, you have to try it out. That's the experiment. So actually it's very scientific spirituality. When you try it, you can see, hey, this works. Like for example, karma or reincarnation were also concepts that were not fully new, but were kind of new to me. But I started to see the world through this lens. Like say most of us, we see the world through a material point of view. Mm-hmm. We can see the world through this lens, like, you have different lenses for camera. So one can zoom very far, one is for close-up pictures. So we have different lenses we can use. So I started to see the world through the lens of the Bhagavad Gita, through the Holy Scripture. And I said, wow, this makes sense. It becomes very clear. It was a really good, it was like a Leica lens of $1 billion. Mm-hmm. It's like, I could see very clearly reality. So, and over time, it becomes more clear. And the interesting thing about spirituality, as I said, it's eternal. So there's no time and space. That also means there's an unending process of getting more deeper clarity, getting more deeper connected. There's an unending process of getting more clear the view of reality, and also experiencing deeper levels of love from within. And you can see in the saintly people that are really connected, that really have a strong yoga, they can be a billionaire. So some of the gurus, they get so much donations because people just love them, they want to help them out financially, but they're completely detached. Like our founder, Charles Prabhupada, somebody got a golden watch and he was wearing it. He said, wow, it looks good on me, like just joking around. And then after a few days, it was just lying around there and he gave it to someone else. He didn't care about it. Yeah. Why? Because the spiritual, they understand this is all temporary. They don't care about it. They just joke around with it. Like also, he was sometimes he was sitting in the airplane and he was laughing at Charlie Chaplin. Like at that time, Charlie Chaplin was one of the only movies that you could watch there. And he was laughing his ass off, and then his servant was thinking, Prabhupada, Gurudev, why are you looking at this as a material, But, you can even look at something like else, but see the spirituality behind it. So, this is the lens you can develop. So every person, every living entity, at least every human being, has a different lens. You will see the world differently than your girlfriend or your mother. Any person you speak to in this world, and you feel like we have an understanding, well, I can 100% sure say you will never have an understanding with anyone fully 100%. Why? Because every person has a different level of consciousness. Yeah. And not that one is better than the other, but it's always a different filter. There's unlimited shades of grey, let's say.
So you start going to this temple after the Vipassana, and then you just live there in the temple.
So I mean, it made sense to me. Like, I mean, as I said, like, I wanted happiness. I felt happy there.
Yeah.
I was always into self-development, and I like what these people do in your life. I was never really much attached to money. So I mean, I like to have a bit of money in my account, but I never had like big desires to be. I like to be a billionaire, but not for the reason of showing off that I'm a billionaire, just as a fun thing to do. But I'm not attached to such things. So I thought I live simple. Simple living, high thinking. This term is, as even in the Western world, is quite often known. And I felt it. I felt happy there. I mean, I also heard one person said, like, I was in Melbourne in Australia. It's a beautiful city, and someone was like, he said like, I needed peace, and I went to the beach, but I didn't feel peaceful. And then I heard there was a temple, like we have a temple there, like literally like 1 block from the beach. And then I went to the temple and I understood that this is peaceful. So I felt that. I couldn't explain it fully, but by reading the Bhagavad Gita, like within the first half year I didn't believe in God. I was very convinced atheist for my whole of my life, for whatever reason, mostly out of hate of seeing bad things happening between religions. But then by gradually reading the philosophy and understanding, my Leica lens was getting better and better. I got upgrades after upgrades, and as I said, this continuous process. I started to become more convinced. But then also still I had my psychophysical nature that I understood, for me, living in temple is not a thing, so I started to travel. So I traveled for the last 4 years, I traveled a lot. Now I have a camper since almost a year. And now recently I started to contemplate, like I'm a monk now, but I'm contemplating to, contemplating about going to enter family life, because I have certain desires. So I still have my psychophysical nature, and that's, as I said, we have these 4 defects, but the one thing we have an influence on is honesty. So and this helps us to not fall down like what you often hear about the Catholic priests, that they rape children, and it happened also in our philosophy. I will be honest, because we often call the temples, we call them mental hospitals or spiritual hospitals, because we're all sick. So we're all sick with material fever, and we need to get rid of it. So we have all this material attachment, desires, like lust, to such an extent even that, people that can be really sincere about spirituality, but even can fall down to such a level that they might rape a child or something, and that happens. And it's not because, it's not because that person is not pure, but they still have a lot of false ego, a lot of material desires that are so strong, and they try to push it down so hard, but it's still there. It's so strong. They're not pure enough to transcend it. And there's a level we call it Paramahamsa stage, when you're completely aloof from material desires, completely. But that's such a high level that's almost not achievable by anyone. No. Okay, so that's where honesty comes in, that you say, okay, I still have material desires. Even most monks, they still have desire. They still have attraction for women. So we have certain rules in place, certain regulations in place that, the way how women and men should associate, especially when it comes to monks. Because this is the strongest material attraction in the world. So, but this is, for example, why also I chose this path, because this is not there in Christianity. This is not there in Islam. I don't know about Islam so much, but I know, for example, Christianity or Catholicism, that they have these issues, but they don't know how to deal with it. But I notice in our philosophy we actually have people fall down because they make mistakes. And of course, we should not say it's a good thing that children get raped. I use an extreme example to just give an example that's very, touching people. But we have a system in place that says, okay, you can practice spiritual life. You don't have to be a monk for it, because like in the beginning of our organization, like in the 60s and 70s, when this guru from India came, Srila Prabhupada, most people were monks and nuns. But because it was a very intense preaching mood, like sharing this wisdom, there were only at the high point 5,000 people practicing this. Like but it was more known than it is now. Why? Because they were so active. But at some point, they understood like, yeah, we have our, like, because the spiritual person, the spiritual teacher was there, he had such a potency that he could uplift all his disciples by his presence. But once he left, most people understood, yeah, without his presence, I mean, he's still present in his teachings, but not in his direct presence. They say the teachings are more important than his direct presence. But they understood, yeah, we need to, enter family life. They were honest with themselves, like most of them at least. They cannot keep up this level of spirituality. They're not at the level of transcendence, let's say. So they still have material desires.
So you just accept this?
Yes, you accept this. So it's not a fall down. No, it's actually a mature spiritual decision of understanding. I still have material desires. Let me situate myself. So we have also in our philosophy we have a Varna's ashram system. That's meant for bridging the gap between being transcendental fully and just starting on spirituality. So what is that? That's 4 levels that comes to the time or that is connected to your psychophysical nature, like you be a teacher, a leader, or you're a business kind of person, or you're kind of a worker, like doing simple kind of work. And none of them is better or worse than the other. No, they're all part. And you get a certain psychophysical nature, and that's just you. That's your print, let's say, blueprint for this lifetime. But then also you have stages of life. Like traditionally in the Vedic culture, and the Vedic culture is the oldest culture in the world, until like a few 100 years ago, and especially like 1,000 years ago, it was really much practiced that normally, and this is done particularly for men, from the age of 5, they go to the Gurukul. That's a school where there's a guru, and he teaches him not just in mathematics and language, but also in spiritual behavior, in spiritual knowledge. And then at the age of 25, there's an intersection. He can either choose to stay a monk for the rest of his life, which was not common, even in old times, or start a family life. But this practice, it's kind of like military school, a spiritual, like you learn tolerance, you learn patience, you learn good qualities actually. Like you see it in people, like for example, Israeli people, like they often like, I mean, it's also not the best thing, army, but like they at least have certain things they learn there. Like nowadays, most men are wimps, if I can be honest. That's why I did pickup artists, for example, to learn over it. But I got to understand most guys are wimps. Like, just look in Netherlands. Women here are stronger than men in general. And it's a reason because we're not trained like that. We're not trained like that. These are certain qualities you also learn as in this, we call it brahmachari stage. So then there's an intersection. You can either stay a monk for the rest of your life, which is for a rare few individuals who are really strong-minded and they really don't have any desire for family, for a wife, or it's very, very low. It's low enough that they can contain this material desire, so they can actually use their inner strength for reaching high spiritual levels. Because being celibate monk, that's the best part, if you can, but it's for a rare individual. And then the other part is becoming we call that a grihasta, that's family life. So family life is meant for making spiritual children, because we believe the time of conception, when a child is being perceived through this concept, we don't like to use the word sex, but let's say for better, for me being, I have a Kali-yoga mind, so I forget often. So when they have sex and a baby comes out of it, the consciousness and certain other situations that have been there at the time of conception, they determine the soul that's being attracted to the body of the of that's being created through the sperm and the egg in the lady. So that consciousness, that it attracts certain consciousness. So what, for example, in our philosophy, we say we have to try to be very spiritually focused when we want to have a child. Why? Because then we attract a child that's very saintly, very spiritually oriented. Because they are more peaceful, they're more happy in general. They go through life with much more ease and have higher goals in mind. So yeah, for most people that's the path they should take. And then there's another intersection that's around the age of 50. I mean, this is ideal, For a lot of people it happens later. Some even happens earlier, but most happens later. And then we have the Vanaprastha ashram. That means the ashram that you renounce family life. You can still be connected to your wife, but you live separate, or at least you live in separate rooms. And it's a process to prepare for death, actually, because we're gonna die in the end all. But our process of life is all the way built in such a way that we can actually, reach higher levels of spirituality. So we actually prepare ourselves for a good death. But that is for not the end point in life. No, that's just one station. So we try to elevate ourselves spiritually. So we come, even in this material life, we can already be fully spiritually conscious, and all the stages are there to get to that level. So that's called vanaprastha, the age of renunciation. And then for a rare individual, they can take up the last step. That's sannyas. Then you become completely renounced. You become completely social dead. You don't want family, nothing. You completely renounce it. You completely surrender to the service of God and sharing His message. So there's maybe 100 people in our whole, around 100 people that do this.
A monk again, or
kind of, yeah, but it's a different stage. Then you completely social, and you have a certain level of responsibility, and you completely you completely renounce. You don't have anything. You don't own anything. You completely surrender to the mission to share this wisdom with people. And you're completely dependent on the mercy of God. So that was, Srila Prabhupada was such a person. He had a family, he has children, but he renounced his family because, mainly actually the reason was because his wife, it's funny actually, he asked once to his wife, what is more important, me or tea? Because he was very attached to tea drinking. I mean, it's stupid actually. And she said, tea. And he said, and then he understood, okay, that's the message from God. I should renounce family now. And then he lived in a holy place for many years, and he prepared himself to go to the West because his guru, there's a time span for around 40 years. He got the message when he was around 20, 25, that he met his guru, and he said to him, you intelligent boys, you go to the West and share this wisdom with the English-speaking people. And he followed that instruction in the end. 40 years later, it took 40 years to in the end make. But even when he was born, like he came from a very spiritual-minded family, so he was already was a very elevated soul. The astrologer, they did an astrology check on him, and he said he will create 108 temples and do this and this and that, and it all came true. And the exact number, exactly 108 temples they set up.
What you think about now is that you want to go into this family stage.
Yeah, why? Because I feel, I've been traveling, and I've been traveling a lot alone, and monks are very rare in our tradition, especially nowadays, at least in the West. And I used to be I'm still a very social person, but I notice I miss some social interaction, and I think a wife can help it. I mean, the sex side is also, of course, there, but it's mostly like, there's a lot of social desire still, and I know I traveled with some monks. Like there are some monks that travel every year, one time around the world, or sometimes 2 times around the world in 1 year, and they do programs all around the world. But for me, that was too intense. Like my body couldn't handle that. So as I said, you have your psychophysical nature. So I'm very social. So for me, it would be good if I have someone around me. And I've tried with some other monks, but. Yeah, and also astrologers. I spoke to 3 astrologers, and all of them said you have to get married at some point in life. But for me, I'm now 36. I have a certain psychophysical nature, a certain astrological reading that I will marry very late in life. Maybe I don't have children. That's optional. Maybe 1 child, but that's not the main thing why I want to get married. But it's like, yeah, you have a certain psychophysical nature, but even that you try to engage spiritually. I mean, it's all in the end with the end goal. Spiritual progress, that's it. Because that is what actually gives us real lasting happiness and ever increasing happiness. So yeah, all the stages are there to facilitate that according to a certain age group. Like even children, children go to certain, you can see like, they say in our philosophy, it's actually very interesting. If you want to become a parent, there's a very simple part of how to raise a good child. They say in the first 5 years, you give only love to a child. You give full love to a child. Then the next 10 years, from the age of 6 to around 15, 16 years, you educate the child. You guide him. You instruct him yourself what to do, what to do and what not to do. But then at the age of 16, around 16, you become a friend to your child. Why? Because then the child has to go out and do his own thing. He has to explore himself. But when like in the first 5 years, child is very prone to love.
Yeah.
Like you can see people that have, even me, like I could see like, certain love I didn't get, and I had to work on that later in my life. But if you give a child all love, he will be very healthy. But then also, in the next 10 years of his life, from the age of 6 to around 16, something like that, he needs guidance, like what is good, what is not bad. Mm-hmm. And you can see around the age of 5, 6, 7, that's when a child starts to become different. He starts to actually, do not really naughty stuff, or can do. So it's very simple actually. So I don't know why I'm saying this, but it's I thought it's interesting to say. And it's really, besides that, we have a lot of wisdom on when it comes to spirituality. We also have a lot of wisdom that comes to how to live consciously just in the material world itself. So even if you don't have spiritual aspiration, you can already learn so many things on how to live healthy. Like I told you when we walked here, like you were eating while walking, and I said, I mean, it's healthy to sit down. Like actually, the healthiest way to eat is to sit on the floor, even.
Okay.
Because they actually did test. It's better for digestion. Okay. Because actually all illnesses come from indigestion. Even emotional problems come from indigestion. Not digestion maybe of food, but indigestion of thoughts, of emotions. So like I read, it's all about digestion in the end. So,
okay, that's. I have another question that I wanted to ask. So now you told a lot about like your life and how you got to be a monk and what you plan now. But I want to know, like, what is the actual practice that gives you this sustained happiness, or what is the thing? Like you said, like this first break or like this first experience you had while this guy was singing, but like you also do the chanting. Like, is there something specific that gives you like more sustained happiness? Is it like the helping others, or like
So it's in the end all about surrendering. Like as I mentioned a few times, man overrides his religion, just surrender. I shall deliver you from all sin, for your actions do not fear. So and by doing that, you will also experience more the happiness. So the people that are most blissful in our philosophy are the ones that 10% is exactly follow the philosophy and completely surrender. So mostly those sannyasis, the last stage of life, I see those people in our philosophy, they are the most blissful. Why? Because they completely surrender. Like even with, again, this example from Fight Club, let go and surrender. But you need someone who guides you. So that's where the guru comes in. Like we say, parampara, so there always needs to be a guru, next guru. So you need to be in line of succession, so you need a spiritual teacher. Our philosophy also says, you can anyways apply this wisdom. I don't have a guru yet, so this is something I'm working on. But the thing is, for the next step, you have to have a guru. You have to follow his instruction. Like this, Srila Prabhupada, he went to the West. Why? Because his guru asked him. And he follows his instruction exactly. That is actually what gives you happiness, by following an instruction that comes from guru. But it's a bona fide guru. So bona fide means someone who exactly follows the teachings as it is. He doesn't give any own speculation, any own interpretation, not even a little bit, nothing. 100% he follows exactly the philosophy. And he not only follows it with his intellect, but also with his heart. And that's very important. That's how you can actually distinguish a real teacher, a real guru, a real spiritual saint from a so-called made-up guru, which are many. Most gurus, so-called gurus, or gurus in India are so-called gurus. They're not really. Why? They don't follow this line of succession. They experience something, but maybe they haven't experienced the full thing. So they can only teach you what they've experienced. So for example, your math teacher cannot maybe tell you about history because he doesn't know about history. So same with a lot of spiritual teachers. They can teach you something, but they can only teach you what they've learned. But the thing is, if you follow the perfect philosophy, which we consider the Krishna consciousness is the perfect philosophy. So far my experience, there's nothing missing there. We have a good way of life. We have a good way how to improve ourselves in life, not only spiritually but also materially, how to live consciously, how to live a happy life on this world, but also being in transcendence, so to be materially happy and spiritually happy. And how does it? Yeah. So in many philosophies this is missing, and so for example the guru is a messenger. As I said, this wisdom comes all the way from up to down.
Mm-hmm.
So we say the Bhagavad Gita spoken is actually Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad means a name for God, and Gita means song. So it's actually spoken by God Himself 5,000 years ago. So God shows Himself in the world in different forms, in different times, in different places, in different religions, in different traditions, and sometimes He shows Himself through a prophet like Jesus or Muhammad or whatever, or in this case Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual teacher. But He also showed Himself, and our lineage is all the way going back to 5,000 years ago, all the way back. So all the spiritual teachers are all the way, like teacher on teacher, they're all the way in lineage with this spiritual line. So we say, we are not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So a guru, if you have a real guru, he will never say, I'm spiritual enlightened, I'm the highest, I know everything.
Yeah.
No, he will say, I'm just a messenger. So the message and the right messenger is the messenger who gives you exactly as it is. So for example, like let's say you do a drug deal, you know, and you're the guy in between. So you like say, I want to buy drugs from you,
Mm-hmm.
or I want to buy drugs from your boss, and you bring me the drugs, and I let's say it costs $100.
Yeah.
But you take the $100, but you keep $10 yourself, and you give $90 to your boss.
Yeah.
So you don't give. So you know you're not an honest messenger,
Mm-hmm.
because the boss should pay you, and you should not take from the wallet. You know, and this is what's happening with most spiritual teachers. They take something out of it. Why?
Yeah.
Because of personal interests. We even believe that, for example, Christianity, they've taken out karma, they've taken out reincarnation, they've taken out vegetarianism. They've taken these things out for whatever personal agenda.
So it's like you change it. You don't just keep the idea, but like from one teacher to the next, they like from one. How do you call the teacher again?
Parampara.
Guru. Guru, exactly.
Yeah.
Like from you don't just keep on saying what your guru said, but you change it, and that's the problem.
That's the problem.
Yes.
So bona fide means someone who doesn't change it. Mm-hmm. So we say to figure out if something is bona fide in spiritual way, there's guru, sadhu, shastra. Shastra means scripture. That's the most important actually. Guru. Is he a really guru? So there's certain rules and regulations, certain principles he should follow by. Is he really a guru? And sadhu means, is he saintly? Is he showing saintly qualities? So there's a big list of all the qualities that a saint has. How much does he show that? But what is more important than these two things is actually saying does he say exactly what is in the scripture? The scripture that has always been there. This is Sanatana Dharma, it means eternal occupation of the soul. Bhagavad Gita is 5,000, this version that we distribute is 5,000 years ago spoken, but Bhagavad Gita is not like the Bible or the Quran or the Torah, which is only spoken once in the world. No, the Bhagavad Gita is spoken again and again and again and again. It's an eternal wisdom. It's not religion. It's actually it's spiritual wisdom. So religion is the outward practice, and spirituality is what's inside it. Like religion is the package of a present. And the present is spirituality. So we talk only about spirituality. There are some religious sides to it, like we wake up early, we dress in certain ways. But this is not so important. Important is the heart, the bhakti, the love and devotion. So if you change the philosophy, the bhakti becomes diluted. It becomes impure. And this is happening. Why? Because of illusionary energy, because of material desires. And when you don't have a sharp understanding of philosophy, you will start to add things, you start to take things away. Like for example, we believe Christians took away vegetarianism for reasons because it is hard to follow, especially in this day and age. But when you really taste it, the higher taste, all the lower tastes are. Like for me, I was also eating meat and fish, but for me it's no problem to eat it anymore, because the food that we have is so much tastier and so much healthier and so much better in so many ways. Okay. So you need to have this higher taste. And this is what the Alcoholics also say. You need to have this higher taste through the connection with the divine.
So how we got here was that you said the thing or like the way that or the people that are happiest are the ones that just follow without adding themselves. Like, or like, did I understand this right? That you say like the people that, yeah, without adding themselves, that just like
without
fully,
adding anything
without adding anything, that just like
they're just a
purely,
messenger.
Exactly, that just purely follow exactly. Those are the people that are most happy, most fulfilled.
Exactly.
How
They
about
fully surrender to the
yes,
process. Yeah.
Yes. How?
It's all about surrender in the end.
Okay,
it's all about like
so it's not
letting
like
go,
the
but
specific, like
letting
the
go to the right
chanting
thing.
Yes.
Well, the chanting is part of it.
Yeah.
So in the end, like our philosophy says, because the chanting is actually the mantras we chant are names of God, and even Christianity say the name is not different from God Himself. We say the name is not different from God Himself as a person, as His qualities, as His pastimes, and as His form. So and His qualities. Yeah.
Okay.
So these are all the same, and that's actually all the time happening around us, and it has many forms and shapes. It sometimes comes through the packaging of Christianity, it sometimes comes through the packaging of Islam, but it also comes into very, very simple things that just happen in our day-to-day life. So there's a spiritual potency behind everything, and we can give it more spiritual potency by our purity, and our purity comes from following the message of, in our case, in the Bhagavad Gita, purely as it is, not adding anything, not taking anything away, just doing it as exactly as it is. Our guru even said, like, I didn't do anything besides following the instruction of my spiritual teacher. That is purity. So spirituality is all to do about purity, doing exactly what your teacher says. In spirit, and that's why we have this Guru Sadhu Shastra. This is a kind of our measurement that we can see, okay, is this Guru actually pure? How pure is he? Is he really following the message, or is he adding something? And as I said, many popular gurus, they're very charming and this and that. And I have names in my mind, but I will not name it because it's offensive. But there are a lot of gurus out there that maybe are nice and they have good points to say, but they also added a lot of things, or they've taken things away for reasons that maybe they believe not enough people will not get enough followers if they tell the full message. Even maybe heard of Maharishi. Have you heard of him?
No, but
Transcendental meditation. Have you heard of transcendental meditation?
Not really. Like I heard it, but I don't really know what it is.
This is one of the most known forms of meditation. It's invented by Maharishi Yogi. They actually have the biggest
following, or
the biggest temple. Biggest, I don't know how they call it, research center. It's actually they're creating actually in Limburg in the south of Netherlands, close to the border with Germany. I visited there once. I wanted to see the place. It's really impressive actually, what they're building. But actually, funny thing was, later on in his life, quite late, when he was already quite known with his transcendental meditation. In California, you have a big place also. There's a lot of yogis there, and it has effect. Transcendental meditation does something, but you could see that his disciples were getting stuck. They were not making any progress anymore. Why? Because it was a self-invented thing. It was not really spiritual. It wasn't, because spiritual there doesn't have an end. That you can always go deeper and deeper. But his students, they didn't get further anymore. At some point they were falling away. So he started to have doubt. And then one of his main servants was actually going to our philosophy, and he experienced actually, wow, this is really good what they're practicing here, and they're really blissful, and I can see they continue to make progress. I mean, people fall down. But that's always, you can always refer to it back to, they were not actually following fully the philosophy, they were not surrendering enough. So we have trials, we get difficult times. I have difficult times in my life. It's not that when you're a monk, life becomes completely blissful all the time. No, we have difficulties. But the difference between a spiritualist and a materialistic person is, a materialistic person tries to avoid the difficult time. They try to avoid the tough emotion. They don't want to cry, like what I've experienced for many years. They try to avoid all these difficult emotions that are painful. So the materialist avoids it, but the spiritualist embraces it, and he grows through the experience. It's tough, but he knows on the other side of this toughness, because this toughness is always material, so it's temporary. It's beginning and end point. He goes through it. And then, and when he goes through it, then in the end, he made a level up. So he's more connected. His yoga is stronger. he gets more faith, he gets more conviction, he experiences more love, he experiences more bliss. And it's continuously growing. And at some point, even the times that look very hard for us, it's completely blissful for the complete transcendental yogi. Like a time like, for example, like yogi is not, a real yogi is not afraid of that. So we say, in our philosophy, we say there's only two people who are really happy. There's the Paramahamsa, so the one who's completely transcendental. I'm not that person. And then there's a person who's completely ignorant.
Yeah.
Who's completely ignorant to anything. He doesn't think about anything.
Yeah.
Well, most of us, we're not in those two.
Yeah.
So we're somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And then there's a part that are materialist, and they're suffering, but they don't grow through it, and they're like donkeys. They keep hitting their head against the same things again and again. And I'm myself, I'm doing the same.
Yes, smart enough to not be ignorant, but still not.
But also not surrendered enough. So most of us, we're in between, and that's good because then we can at least suffer. And suffering is, in a sense, good because without suffering, without the pain, we think like this life is the thing. But you know, this world is temporary. It's not our eternal place. It's just it takes a long time. We're here millions of lifetimes if we believe our philosophy, but it's still temporary. It's like a flick of a finger in the perception of eternity. So yeah, and then there's other people like the spiritualists that try to grow to it, and there's different paths, and the purer the path, the quicker and the more profound the process. Like for example, you know, you can clean the room with a broom, or you can clean the room with a vacuum cleaner. Vacuum cleaner will do a better work than the broom. So there's different spiritual paths that in the end are maybe all spiritual, but one is more powerful than the other. Like, you know, you can go by airplane to New York, or you can go by boat, but the airplane is faster.
Yes.
The boat go to New York, but the airplane is faster. So in the spiritual teachings, some are faster. And for example, let's say, for example, some spiritual teachings are like a car. So a car cannot go to New York in no way. Yeah. So it always needs an aid of an airplane or a boat. So some spiritual teachings are like that. So they will never, you can never go beyond the shore of Zandvoort, let's say. So some spiritual teachings are like, they can give you deeper, but it's cannot bring it to New York from here. Okay,
interesting. I have one last thing that I would like to ask, or I don't know if this is like I don't like, because this chanting, it is you explained it to me a little bit in the last podcast, but it's quite interesting for me because like I grew up, my parents are Christian, and I never really experienced that. And like as a last thing before we end, I wanted to ask you if you could like show it to me a little bit, like just just like that I understand. Like I don't know. Just explain how, like, what exactly you do, and just yes, like you don't have to, like, I don't know if you don't want to because it's like a camera.
I can show you a bit, but I think more important is the explanation behind of it.
Okay, yeah, you can why you do it, or the explanation how you
explain
do it.
Why. So Bhakti-yoga, our part is called Bhakti-yoga, and there's different and yoga. There's many forms of yoga. They say officially there's 108 forms of yoga, and not including beer yoga and dog yoga. But like official forms of yoga, there are 108 forms, and Bhakti-yoga can be practiced by anyone because not everybody has a sharp intellect. So Jnana yoga is Jnana means knowledge. Not everybody has sharp intellect, so not everybody can do Jnana. Not everybody has a physical capacity, so not everybody can do Karma yoga, the yoga of activity. And not everybody can stand on his head and do crazy poses, so not everybody can do Ashtanga yoga. But everybody can do Bhakti yoga. There's the yoga of love and devotion, because everybody has a heart. Without the heart, you would not live. So everybody has also soul, because you are the soul. You don't have a soul, you are spirit. Brahmamasmi. I forgot the verse. I am spirit, soul. So everybody can do Bhakti yoga, and the essence of Bhakti yoga, and there's different traditions, there's different lineages, there's different branches in Bhakti yoga. You have different sampradayas, different lineages. Even in Christianity, there's the Protestant, there's the I don't know all those names, but you have different. So I also come back with
evangelic.
So even in Christianity, there are the Rosemary Christians, and they chant also on beats. They have Rosemary chanting. They also chant on 108 beats. So it is part of Christianity, but somehow some groups do it, and some groups don't do it. And why? Because you have this so-called gurus that take certain things away and add certain things, and so on. So that's why you have all these different lineages, because some add and some. But there's also different lineages that are all pure and all come back to the different source because they had different starting teachers. So, and for the honest spiritualist, for the sincere spiritualist, it's his duty, if he's really sincere, to figure out which one is better for me. So as I said, some vehicles can bring you to New York, some cannot. And that's with spiritual as well. And I will not discriminate here which I believe are bringing you to New York and which ones are not. That's for you to figure out. But there are some paths that can bring you there, and some paths can bring you only to a certain degree. So, you know, for example, some things you can do on a MacBook laptop, which you maybe cannot do on a Windows computer. And the other way around. Some people they swear by Windows. Some people swear with Macintosh. I mean. It's like potato. I was saying yesterday, 2 days ago, to a lady, you know. So, some people like vanilla ice cream, some people like chocolate ice cream. I like chocolate ice cream. You like vanilla ice cream. No problem. It's both ice cream. But you know, it's about ice cream. So, but the thing is, this chanting is like kind of a medium. So as I said before, even in Christianity, they say the name is none different from God himself. So we say the name is none different from God himself as a person, as his qualities, as his form, and as his pastimes. So this name is actually a prayer. And the name is a vessel, it's like a capsule. Like when you have a medicine, which is in a capsule, or like, I also, for example, take vitamin D, it's like the empty capsule. But the medicine inside, or
so the chanting is like the capsule? Yes.
And the bhakti, that's the medicine.
Okay.
And why?
So just the chanting.
Yeah. And why do we use this capsule? Why do we use the capsule of the Maha mantra? Maha means the great mantra, because that's in the script. It's in the scripture. There's many mantras, and there's also different lineages that chant different mantras. But why I chant this mantra? Because according to scripture, the one I believe in, it said that this is the strongest mantra. This is the highest vibration. And everything material, everything subtle, everything thoughts, everything spiritual, everything has a vibration. This table has a vibration. Our thoughts have a vibration. And this vessel has the strongest vibration. This capsule of the Maha Mantra has the strongest vibration. So it's the strongest to get rid of a false ego.
It's
so
like
we
the best
say,
capsule.
So it's the strongest. It's the strongest vibration to get rid of the clouds, so we can see the sun, the sun of the pure love of God. And the medicine is our personal devotion, our personal surrenderedness, our personal input of our heart, our personal desire, our personal understanding of this world is temporary, real happiness is actually not here, it's in our relationship with God. So when we chant this mantra, we have different stages of chanting. There's Nama Aparat, we chant with offenses. Offenses means we chant from the false ego, make offenses to others, to the holy name, and so on. Then is Nama Bas.
Wait, this is when you chant, each time you go through this, or that some people chant in this way, or some people chant?
So you chant, same with, you know, as I said, before enlightenment, you push up the rock on the mountain. After enlightenment, you push up the rock up the mountain. The difference is the consciousness behind it. So also behind the chanting, there can be different consciousness, different degrees of purity of intent.
So if I would chant right now, it would maybe be like more false ego chanting.
Exactly. Yes. For me too. Yes. For me too. Maybe I'm 1% spiritual.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it goes from 0% to unlimited. Yeah. But on a material level, there's a certain point. Okay, then there's no false ego anymore. But false ego comes back again here in the material world. Why? Because we live in it. But then we can go to spiritual, and it keeps going on. But to come back to the thing, like this mantra, according to scripture, has the highest vibration. So this the best capsule, it's the strongest capsule. It's the capsule that doesn't have any side effects, any bad side effects. Like, you know, if you talk in medicinal terms, it is the best medicine you could get. It can cure cancer without losing hair, without.
Wait, it's the medicines, but it's just the cap. Is there already?
Well, it's both.
But the chanting is the mantra, the what you say.
It is the capsule that doesn't give any bad side effects. It only gives good side effects.
I thought the chanting is just the capsule, and what's inside is something else, or well, like the medicine.
That's a bit complicated. It's actually both.
Okay.
But to make it also the medicine, it's about your sincerity. It's about your intention. It's about your purity. So all these things we do service, we chant, we read the scripture, we serve, we live with other spiritual practitioners, we call ourselves devotees of Krishna, of God. This association purifies, because why? Because when we interact, our false ego comes up, and when we practice spirituality, or at least Krishna consciousness, our impurities come up. So for example, in our philosophy we have a nice saying, we boil butter down to ghee. And ghee is clarified butter. Like people in Islamic world, they also use it. It's impurities of butter come out. So we say, like, when we put ourselves on the fire of devotional service by being in association of devotees and chanting these names, impurities come up. And these are painful. A materialist would, when such things happen, hide in drugs, in sex, in alcohol and all these things. What we do, we pray, or at least ideally we pray, we surrender. Okay, this impurity is there, please purify me from this impurity. That's a prayer we do. Please remove this. And then when we go to the stage and we are tolerant by experiencing this impurity in ourselves, then it comes out, it boils out, and we can take it out with the spoon. Like you take the impurities of butter out with the spoon until it becomes ghee, clarified butter. It becomes clear. So these impurities come up through the chanting. And then over time, this chanting itself...
Through the chanting in the process, you realize it in your head, or it just happens?
In the head,
yes.
It's easy. But in the heart, that's the thing. It should come part of the heart. So the impurities come out of the heart. Like thinking, I am better, this and that. Like, for example, we say, our path is maybe the purest. But doesn't mean that I'm purer than you. So I could meet a person on the street who's not spiritual at all on the outside, but he might be much more pure in person than I am, even though I'm practicing 24/7 spiritual practice. Because of previous lifetimes, but he's maybe not aware of it. But the thing is, the chanting is the means and the end. Why? Because it purifies us of our false ego, but it's also the end goal, because the name is non different from God himself, and the goal is God. And God is love.
Yeah, the goal is getting closer
and we want love. That is what we search for. So the means and the end goal are exactly the same. So at the beginning, the mantra is not so much a medicine. Why? Because it's not so much infused yet with devotion, with love, with pure intent. But the more we chant, this chanting with offenses becomes pure and pure and pure, till even the extent it becomes Sudanam, that means pure name. Name which is pure. And then even within that, then we come to a level that we're not chanting anymore out of our false ego, making any offenses. Then even the relationship with God can continue to be improved over time. But when we're at that level, we don't need to reincarnate anymore. So we go to spiritual world, we believe, and then you keep developing your relationship there. It's an ever-increasing experience. But there's no time and space, so it happens all the time. Just right now, you're already there and not. And I mean, this is, we try to grasp it with our mind, but it's very hard because it's both at the same time. Because in spirituality, there's no time and space. So actually, we're already pure, but we are somehow now with our consciousness in an idea of time and space. So we try to, like spirituality, you cannot see it. You can only point in the direction of it, till the point that you can actually experience it by purification. So with your intellect, you can only point towards it, but you cannot experience it with your intellect, you cannot experience it with your material senses. So we spiritualize a sense so that we can actually experience it.
Okay, so for me, I'm very much in my head intellectual, like thinking. When I hear this, like I, of course, like for me, it's not like that. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm like 100% convinced that but I find it interesting what you explained to me, you know. And for example, with the chanting, is it something that one could try to like see if this experience comes up, or is there exactly. like for example this or
exactly. You can try it out. Yeah, it's an experiment. Like
exactly. Like,
there was like a discussion like between an atheist and one Hare Krishna monk, a guru. And they had the nice philosophy, say like, how can how I cannot see God, how can I believe that He really exists? Mm-hmm. And our philosophy says, and we need to remind ourselves also in that way, it's not about trying to see God. It's about trying to behave in such a way that God actually wants to see you. God always loves you. We believe, even the Christians say God loves. I mean, we at least say, God loves everyone, no matter what. But He especially loves His devotees who are always devoted to Him and always serve Him with love and devotion. It's said in the Bhagavad Gita. So we need to act in such a way, like be kind to every living entity, even if someone is like a complete a-hole to us. We still try to be nice, kind, and say, okay, have a nice day, sir. Probably you had some, maybe you lost your job or whatever. Yeah. Something happened to your life why you act like this. So, these qualities we develop, and the more we develop, the more you get recognized by God, and we will start to see the hand of God more in our life. Why? Because we act on a pure level. We act on a level of tolerance, of surrenderedness, of acceptance, and then we start to see God more. And you can experience this just by experimenting it. Like for example, in the beginning, I didn't have an understanding of karma. I didn't have an understanding of reincarnation. But I said, okay, let me do the experiment. Let me look through this lens and see what I see. I was pointing it a bit like this, a bit like that, a bit like... So it's a continuous adjustment.
As if, even if you don't believe, let's say, okay, I don't believe in the concept of karma. You tell me of it, or... I also don't think I believe in a God, but it's not that I'm totally close to it. But so you tell me about it. What when you mean by looking through a lens? Is it by you imagine that you believe in it, or?
Well, yes and no. Mm-hmm. Yes, both. Again, both.
Okay.
So, first of all, some people come to this out of a lack of enjoyment in the material world, and they come out of suffering. Or out of curiosity, or just wanting to know about the absolute truth. So they come to this path, and they're curious. And then, for example, for me, I had some experience that I couldn't explain, but I felt a joy, a bliss, a happiness that I never experienced in this life. I couldn't explain it, but it was good. So I wanted more of it. I had a taste. When you eat at a restaurant, which makes the best pancakes in the world or the best pizza in the world, you want to eat there again, no?
Yeah.
Even though you don't know how the pizza is made.
Yeah.
They have some secret ingredient. So you go again and you taste it again. And you go again and you taste it again. And then maybe at some point you start to ask, damn it, I want to make this pizza myself also. Yeah. You start to ask the cook, how do you make this pizza? But he will say, of course, secret ingredient. But let's say he says, yeah, sure, I can give you the recipe.
Yeah.
And then you make it at home. You try it again, but because it's very complicated, this recipe has very fine details, very, very intrinsic details. So you try to make it, but it's never the same. Because this guy, he's like the guru of pizzas, he knows exactly how to make the best pizza in the world. Yeah. So he makes this pizza, but then over time you will start to notice, actually my pizza starts to taste better and better. Maybe not as good as his pizza yet, but it's getting better and better. So you get a taste for it. Yeah. So you start to get an experience. You start to get and then come back to spirituality, you start to get a spiritual experience. And you start to read the philosophy, you start to reflect back on the philosophy, and you start to say, hey, this makes so much sense. And there's a lot of indicators, for example, karma, reincarnation. I mean, why is Mozart born as a perfect pianist at the age of 4? I mean, where did he get that from, Or but also on the other side, why do some children die at the age of 2? Why did that have to happen? You know, what's the logical explanation behind it? There's still a leap of faith, but by seeing the world more through this lens, you know, there needs same with the Big Bang, for example. Like, I don't know who said it, but like, you know, atheists often believe in the Big Bang, or most atheists believe in the Big Bang. The world created out of nothing. And then I would say, or someone said, like, if there's so much intelligence going behind making this laptop, you know, how come that there's no intelligence behind creating something amazing as the universe? Why did that just happen? And then this person said, I just don't have so much faith in that the world is created out of nothing, while this laptop is created by so many intelligent minds. I just don't have so much faith.
Yeah.
Okay, this we can see, of course.
Yeah.
But as I said, you cannot see God on command. Like, same if you want to see the president of America, why does he want to see you? You're not qualified to see him, unless you're maybe the president of Russia or Ukraine, and you know this meeting is important to prevent World War #3.
Yeah.
You know, okay, then he maybe wants to see you, but you're just some guy from Germany studying artificial intelligence. I mean, you're a good boy, but you're not so important to him.
Yes,
you know,
exactly,
so you know you need to qualify yourself to be able to be seen by God, and then when God wants to see you, He will also show Himself more to you. He will give you glimpses. So I don't say I'm too pure, but somehow I got mercy, somehow that I could see God to certain degrees. And some people have seen God less, and there's other people who have seen God more. So as I said again, there's 4 people that come to spirituality. One is out of wealth. That's mostly what you see in Indian. There's a lot of Shivais, people who follow Shiva. You heard of Shiva? Yeah. Then there's people who are really inquisitive, people who are really wanting to know about the absolute truth. And then there's a completely stressed. And for my personal experience, the ones who really dedicate themselves to spirituality, they're either very intelligent and they really believe in this, understanding this absolute truth and the curiosity, but always there's some discontent of the material world, understanding every form of enjoyment is temporary. I need to work very hard to just go on holiday 2 weeks a year in some countries. You know, work 50 weeks of the year, and the 2 weeks I can go on holiday, enjoy. Maybe you're a bit smarter, so you maybe have 4 weeks of holiday or 6 or 8. I have holiday 24/7 because I do whatever I want or what I want, but it's also in alignment with spirituality. And I believe everybody wants this, not per se to be a monk, but to find the happiness from a force that's not limited to time and space.
So when you said there are like things that can give you the taste and feeling, like with the pizza, like when you go there the first time, like what are those things that you can do to get this taste? Is it just like that you have to wait and maybe by like that it maybe happens to you?
The funny thing is, I started to realize it over the last year because I'm distributing books on the street, and sometimes I get frustrated. Why nobody's taking a book? But then I'm like, you know, we eternal souls. Some souls just need to bake a bit longer in the material world till they understand that it's just too hot here. There's too unpleasant. That there's too much unpleasantly. That happiness in the material world is not worth striving for. And as I said, like, okay, let's say I love pancakes. And the first day I eat pancakes, I love it. The second day I eat pancakes, I still love it because I really love pancakes, you know.
But after 100 days,
you're fed up with it, you know. You want something else. But the variety in the material, there's a lot of variety. So that's why, you know, you see, when you look back to the beginning of your life till now, now there's millions of TV channels. But in the beginning there were just a few TV channels because people were more satisfied with just a few TV channels. But we always need to create more and more and more. And just look around. If you're just a bit intelligent, you can see that this trying to find happiness in the material world is also very destructive for the material world and for the other living entities and for ourselves as the human race. So finding happiness within is just not just good for ourselves, but it's good for every living entity around us. And if we really believe that there's a God, an energy that connects us all, when we try to connect with that, we connect it with everybody around us. So we say, when you want to nourish the tree, when you want to nourish the leaves on the tree, you water the root. You don't put water on the leaves. So when we nourish our connection with God, we connect more deeper with God, we develop love for God. And when we understand God is in everything and everyone, we develop love for everything and everyone. So automatically we will not rape children. We automatically will not kill animals for our own sense gratification. We automatically don't make a lot of garbage. We automatically will not fight wars. We automatically will not do anything that is harmful to anyone. On the highest level of purity, you will not want to harm anything and anyone. Because it just doesn't make any sense. Just from a logical, spiritual perspective, it just doesn't make any sense to do such thing. But when you still live on a material level, you live out of a perspective of greed, out of need. But on the spiritual level, you live out of a level of fullness, out of giving. You don't need anything. You're already connected. You have everything that you need. But God is providing you everything that you need to sustain your body and mind. Okay. And this is actually, I'm seeing more and more. Like this morning I gave an example. I was camping somewhere with my camper. And I said, the funny thing, in a camper you have a toilet, but you have to empty it once in a while. Yeah. And I told them, like, in the beginning I was always looking for where to empty this toilet. But because I believe, because I'm trying to serve God by sharing His wisdom with people, I believe God takes care of my material needs. So always when the toilet is almost full or when it's full, somehow there's a Dixie next to my camper, so I can just empty it. So I don't have to look in a place where I can sneaky empty it, in some gas station. I mean, it's a simple thing, but this is the hand of God. I can see it. And this is, the beginning there's some faith, but the more you start to see it, the more you start to believe it. And the more you believe it, the more you start to see it. So it's both, in both directions. So with spirituality, with material wisdom, with material laws, material things, it's like seeing is believing. With spirituality, believing is seeing. So you first have to believe, understand that happiness in the material world is not fulfilling, it's not sustainable for me, for anyone, for anything. Happiness is in spiritual realm, and do the experiment. So.
But what would be a practical experiment? Like,
visit a temple. I can give you some cards actually. We have a temple in Belgium, 1 hour south from Maastricht, roundabout, and they do be a monk challenge. So you can do the experiment. As I said, to figure out if honey is tasty and sweet, you have to actually put it in your mouth.
Yes.
So you can do the experiment. And you could still be skeptical, because skeptical is a sign of intelligence. And actually, our guru said we want intelligent followers. We don't want blind followers, which is happening in many other faiths. You have blind followers. Often when Christians, there's Christians who understand Christianity, but there's many, when I ask them about the philosophy behind the religion, behind their spiritual teaching, they don't understand it. They cannot explain me a clear answer why things are happening as they're happening. And for me, it makes a lot of sense. Also because I have some experience, but you also need to have the philosophy to back it up. So I say, our spiritual teacher said, like, you have the philosophers, they have a very good philosophy, but they don't have an experience of realization. So for them, it just stays here in the mind. It just is mental speculation. They don't have an actual transformation of heart. And then on the other side, you have the fanatics, the religionists, who maybe believe in Allah, God, or Jesus Christ, or any form of God. And maybe they're true, but they don't have a philosophy to back it up, so they become fanatic. They start to fight wars, they start, jihad and all this nonsense. Because they don't understand the philosophy. And they say, this is the only way. We don't say that. We don't say this is the only way. Some ways maybe not be able to get you to New York, but at least be able to get you to the beautiful beaches of Holland or Spain or whatever.
Yeah.
But, they get you somewhere. But we believe that there's truth in them. But if you cannot explain why it is truth, then it's fanaticism. Spirituality is only there when you have the philosophy and the sentiment. So when you can have a realization of the philosophy. So in our philosophy in the Bhagavad Gita says, Raja Vijay Raja Guyam Pratyaksa Fagamam Dharimam Susakam Katum Avyayam. It said, it's 9.2 in Bhagavad Gita, it said, this knowledge is the highest of education. It is the most secret of secrets. So it's actually underlying under all knowledge, under all teachings. This is actually the most secret of where even scientists go to Einstein, go to Schopenhauer, go to Oppenheimer, Nelson Mandela, all the big guys, big world changers, they all read the Bhagavad Gita. And in the end, all this wisdom can in the end all lead you to God. And if you go really deep into the essence, so it says it's most secret of secrets, and because it gives direct perception of the self by self-realization. So by doing the practice, you get more realization that I'm spirit, soul. So even Vipassana can help you to a certain degree to this. And then it said, this knowledge is joyfully performed. So this is something that I say to Christians why I practice it, because I feel Hare Krishnas are a bit more joy. I can show you a video of us on King's Day.
Yeah.
How blissful we are compared to the people who are completely drunk or completely stoned.
Yeah.
And people join us. They don't understand what we're doing, but they join us because it's blissful. But there's a method behind the madness. And it is everlasting, this verse says, because as I said, the Bible is spoken 2,000 years ago, the Quran maybe a bit later or before, and the Torah and so on. But the Bhagavad Gita, this version that we study is 5,000 years ago spoken by God himself, but it's spoken again and again and again, not just in this universe, in all universe, in all creation. It's an eternal conversation that always happens. So it's everlasting, it's spiritual, it's not religion, it's the essence. The Bhagavad Gita, just surrender unto me, I shall deliver all sinful reactions, do not fear, abandon all varieties of religion. It's not the religion, not the outward practice, it's about the heart understanding. I'm looking for love, I'm looking for happiness. Material happiness is temporary. And I've experienced there's a happiness that I couldn't find through the sex with the most amazing girls who had the most funky way of having sex, the best chocolate in the world, the best pizza, the most beautiful waterfall, I've been to the most beautiful beaches. I had money that more than I could spend at certain times in my life, all these things. And people in our philosophy that are much more, managed in life, like the Beatles, for example, they had not just had fame, drugs, rock and roll, money, they had women, that everything that you can get in this material to the full extent that they even understand, this doesn't make me happy. But the thing is, if you still think it's there in the material world, you will not go to spirituality, really. Okay. Because they say in the Bhagavad Gita, it said that the one who is still attached to sense enjoyment and to material opulence and who's easily bewildered by such things, he will not develop resolute determination for devotional service unto God. So when you still have a desire, when you still think there's enjoyment in the material world, in material opulences, in the material fame, glory, money, everything, then you will not fully be dedicated. You have to really realize that.
Yeah.
So that's why when I go out on the street, I try to be detached from this winning book. I give them the book, the seed is planted, but they have to put water on the seed to make it grow. There's a very beautiful example in Japan or China. There's a bamboo. You can look it up. There's a form of bamboo that let's say last thing. There's a form of bamboo that only grows after 7 years, giving it water every single day without a stop. I mean, that takes dedication. They say that's like around 2,000 days of giving water to a seed, and you don't see any result. You don't see, like our guru, for example, Srila Prabhupada, for 40 years, he didn't see any tangible result in his sharing of Krishna consciousness. But then in the last 12 years of his life, boom, it took off. And it's a household. It's not so known as Christianity, of course. Yeah. But according to our philosophy, it's going to be the biggest, strongest tradition in the next 10,000 years. And then after that, the world is going to hell. Because people are so much in ignorance, so much dull, that they cannot even think about spirituality. It's like completely...
Okay.
So
It's very interesting, especially like also the part with how to get to it. Yeah. So I think it's already 5 now.
Yeah, you should stop. No, I need to go to the toilet also.
Yes, me too.
I also still have a material body.
Jeroen, thank you very much. Yes, this was very interesting to hear from you, like to hear your life. It's a very interesting life. I could see myself in it a lot. Like even if I didn't,
everybody has some,
it's quite also with this fire to try to find like the meaning, like
your podcast is right.
It's exactly
the reason to live, or what was it again?
It's like I'm searching essentially for the meaning of life. Like I'm trying to figure out how to live life, like
how to live.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean this is not this is just one of the ways, and I said there's many vehicles that can bring you to New York or to your destination in the end. you know,
we'll see.
some go to the mountains, some go to the sea, some go, you know. So everybody has his personal path, but we all on that path.
Yeah.
Knowingly or unknowingly, we're all on that path.
Nice.
And I believe, you're an intelligent boy. I mean,
we'll see.
also, I think. And you know, we met for a reason. And when are you going to do Vipassana?
I'm gonna do it in the summer, like I think in August. August. Yes. Okay. So it's still a bit, but
I mean, I was thinking, like, I'm curious. Like, tell me when you've been there. Like, tell me how it was for you.
I can send you.
But make the full 10 days. The first few days is very tough. Make we call it sankalpa. Make a commitment, like I'm really going to do it. The first 4 or 5 days is for most people very tough, and then it starts to the surrender comes.
Any short tips for preparation, like with the sitting, hurting, or just like
don't make it your like. For example, I have a hernia, and I have my knees are also not the best. So I half of the times with just sitting on a chair, just be honest. Don't because you can really push yourself like really extremely, and you can get heavy injuries also with this form of meditation. So and that's not the purpose of meditation.
To just sit on a chair sometimes.
No, you need to. I mean, our philosophy and our tradition say you need to sit up straight because if you lay back, you get relaxed, especially when you have a certain body type that easily you feel drowsy. So you need to sit straight. And just follow the instructions. I mean, but the main important thing, I think, what I heard from others and including myself, is to make the commitment. I plan. Like if you want to get good at anything, you need to make some commitment. This is for me also hard. Like for example, I find it very. That's why I don't have a guru yet, because I'm not fully committed yet. That's why I don't have a wife yet, because I didn't ever had a good experience with girls. But when you make this commitment, then the universe, God, or whatever you believe in, is like, okay, let's do this. But he's also going to test you.
Okay.
But,
nice. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Haribo.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I enjoyed it too.